Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Friends Per Second podcast. It is lovely to have you back. We appreciate you. It's also lovely to have back Lucy, who has just returned from a holiday in
Iceland.
Whoa, who goes to holidays in Iceland except Vikings, right?
Boy.
That's a weird place to go.
Immigrants. Who need a visa stamp. And also Jake Baldino.
That's the thing. You will notice that Jake is not here today, and the reason is because he's on holidays in Iceland. Just as Lucy left Iceland, Jake arrived. Yep. I feel like we then need to just keep it. We have this constant chain where we just keep going.
Next week, I will not be here. I will be in Iceland.
This episode is brought to you by Iceland's Tourism Authority. Visit Iceland. It's not as icy as the name suggests.
No, it's lovely. I had a lovely time.
If you love volcanic rock and
there's a lot of it,
then apparently it's really. What was the highlight of the trip, Lizzie?
I think the lagoon. I also will say I went to the penis museum, and let's just say they know exactly what they're doing because you walk around with a beer. The whole thing it's exactly what you think it would be. Humbling is the word I would use to describe it. But I had a great time.
Humbling for the gentlemen that go along.
No.
Is that
I saw a penis in there that was taller than I was. So humbling in every sense of the word.
Do they have wax sculptures of dudes?
No, they have pickled.
Oh my god.
Pickles?
This was the inspiration for genital jousting, no doubt. It's a nice segue because later on in the show we are joined by Graeme Struthers. He is one of the co-founders of Devolver Digital. Talks to us about what's going down and how Devolver got its start and all the craziness with Hotline Miami and Fall Guys and going public and all that sort of shit. So stick around for that. That's going to be fun. I thought when we were talking penises, I thought that'd be a nice.
That was great. I loved it.
I loved it.
Thank you. We're also joined by Jirard, who is in a different studio every week. By the way,
I know.
You're in a new location.
You're just one-upping us.
You're like a bride at a wedding. It changes address 7 times.
Not committal, baby. You can't lock me down in this studio.
That's right.
This is going to be my permanent setup. They asked me to. They're breaking down the studio system that I was in before, so this is now my permanent setup. I told them I wasn't going to go in here unless they put soundproofing, and they did put soundproofing. So hopefully there's no echoing, and if there is, everyone at home, I'm very sorry, but I will get my revenge. Don't worry.
There's no echoing. You sound magnificent as always.
Good. Thank you.
Filling in for Jake Baldino this week is a very special guest, someone that we are very, very happy to have along. We've been trying to get him onto the podcast since day dot, really?
Yeah.
Even before the podcast was a thing, we're getting Gene on the podcast. It's happening. I am, of course, speaking about Gene Park. Are you the only, no, you're not the only person reporting games at Washington Post. There's at least one other person I know of.
Yeah. There's Nathan Grayson and Shannon Liao.
That's right.
And I was the first one. So
sure, that started it all there at Washington Post. Someone that we really greatly admire, does fantastic coverage. He and I have never once agreed on a video game. I think basically, if I like it, then he hates it. If he hates it, I'm going to love it. That's generally how it goes.
You keep saying that, but I think we've actually generally agreed on a lot of games lately. So.
Yeah, probably. But
it's just an ongoing joke because I think we disagreed harshly one time, and that was
sure.
Fuck yeah. So.
But no, it's really awesome to have you along, man. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here on this beautifully named podcast. I understand Lucy came up with the name.
Thank you.
It's true,
and it's kind of like an Avengers of people here, of creators here. It's amazing, I'm sad Jake's not here. Jake's another guy that I've admired for a long time, and someone whose tastes seems to be completely aligned with mine because we both loved the Mad Max game that came out of several years ago. So,
he's all about that lately.
Yeah.
And I think some other people have actually picked up the game again since his recent coverage. They're like, you know what, that actually was pretty good.
That was pretty good, and I had to retweet him. I was like, man, that was a good game. That really went under the radar after Phantom Pain came out the same day, basically. So,
but it did.
It did, yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Talk about getting shreked by. That's like Guerrilla Games level stuff.
It's
where
basically was Horizon to Elden Ring right there.
Baby,
That's right.
0-2.
That's right. So yeah, I guess the other thing that I guess also probably mention is that, Gene, you have been going through something very rough, and I guess wanted to sort of acknowledge that at the start of the podcast as well. You had a diagnosis of cancer, and that was really heartbreaking for us to hear. We're really sorry to hear that, but we know that you're in treatment and that's going. And we just wanted to check in to see how that's going and how you're feeling.
Yeah, I'm on the mend. I was diagnosed with colon cancer a couple months ago, and to be quite honest, like I didn't know what it was up until the diagnosis. So I thought I was really, really sick. But now that I've been getting treatment, I've actually felt better than I've ever have this whole year. Awesome. I'm doing podcasts, I've never sounded like this earlier this year. So I do feel healthier, and I'm on the mend. Doctor says things are looking real good. And I'm kind of past halfway through my treatments. No side effects,
Wow.
fingers crossed.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That's huge. That's huge, because the doctor was like, it's about now that you start feeling everything. It was like, are you sure you're okay? And I was like, well, here's the thing. I've gotten chemotherapy hiccups, which is a thing. And that's been the worst side effect, that the hiccups will just kind of come up. And the great thing is that I actually have a perfectly foolproof trick to get rid of hiccups. It works every time.
Go on.
Okay, what is it? You have to tell us. That's a
okay. Sure. Yeah. I actually learned this from Aaron Henson, Ego Raptor over at the Game Grumps, and I've repeated this trick so many times. What you do is, if anyone want a video, you close your eyes, hold your breath, and then you take your pinkies, and then you very, very try to lightly touch your eyelid. Like, it needs to be like a microfiber of you're barely touching your eyelids. Like, hold it up like up to your elbows up to your shoulder length. And apparently that moves your diaphragm and your muscles enough, and you're focusing so much on trying not to touch your eyelid that it actually just heals your hiccups. It works every single time.
That's amazing.
It is a magic trick at the bar when I meet a girl who has hiccups, and I'll be like, "Hey, I can save your night right now."
Hey, baby.
Yeah, you just sat there. You just sat there waiting.
Yeah,
I'm in.
I'm just waiting for some squeaking girl to walk by, and I'm just saying, "Hey, I can make your night a lot better with getting rid of that." And it works every single time. It works every single time. Like women, people will just look at me and be like, "You are magic," and I'm like, "I know."
Take that, Andrew Tate. That is how you get a girl, okay? None of this other nonsense. It's about curing their hiccups, all right? That's the way to do it.
Things are going great. I'm getting rid of my hiccups. I'm feeling great.
That is definitely the thumbnail and title of this video, by the way. How to cure your hiccups. One easy trick.
How to cure hiccups, not clickbait.
Not one easy trick featuring the Game Grumps.
Right. But with the pickup trick, it is #gone sexual after that. So that's how we get that in there as well. All caps. So look, Gene, wonderful to hear that you're feeling better. That's awesome. Thank you very much for this incredible tip. We're going to put it to good use, I'm sure. And we're glad that you're here today, because we have heaps of console nonsense to talk about. It's been a huge week for ridiculous console wars drama. Right? And we don't like the console wars, obviously. It's lame.
No, but we love drama.
It's funny when the brands start fighting, right? When people on Twitter are being console war idiots, you're like, shut the fuck up. But when the brands start fighting amongst themselves, then we're like, hell yeah, man, it's on like Donkey Kong. And that has been what's gone down this week when, for a variety of things. But the thing that happened just before we started recording was that Jim Ryan issued a rare statement in relation to the acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft.
Dude, when you see Jim Ryan trending, you're like, oh, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good one, isn't it?
That's so true, isn't it? Like when Phil Spencer's trending, it's always like, we love you, Phil. Good job, Phil. What good thing has Phil said or done now, right? But when it's Jim Ryan, you're like, this is what's he said now. Again, we have to reiterate, because I know at the podcast, with the console, we don't give a fuck about console wars. Okay, we own all the platforms. We want all of them to succeed. Whatever else, blah blah blah. It's annoying that I have to say this, but we have to say this at the front.
It's so annoying. We're game creators. We have all the stuff.
Of course, and we always have all the stuff.
Always had all the stuff all the time.
For sure. So the exact statement from Jim Ryan was, and it's actually it escapes me now. I'll see if I can pull.
Oh, here I've got the tweet.
Have you got the tweet? Can you read it out if you don't mind?
He's a Geordie, so I could do it with the intonation that the Lord intended.
That's true. Yeah.
I hadn't intended to comment on what I understood to be a private business discussion, but I feel the need to set the record straight because Phil Spencer brought this into the public forum. Microsoft has only offered for Call of Duty to remain on PlayStation for 3 years after the current agreement between Activision and Sony ends. When is that, by the way? After almost 20 years of Call of Duty on PlayStation, their proposal was inadequate on many levels and failed to take account of the impact on our gamers. We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality Call of Duty experience, and Microsoft's proposal undermines this principle.
It is so funny. It is so funny to hear those words out loud too. Like it really is funny.
The thing that gets me is when he's like, I have to set the record straight, like he's fucking doing a notes app apology or something. Like,
it's messy. It's messy out here. I have to set the record straight. You know,
he's a messy bitch.
It's very Kardashian. It's like the last 15 minutes of a Kardashian episode. So. So obviously this happens because recently Phil Spencer sent, apparently, this is not confirmed, but apparently Phil Spencer sent a letter to Jim saying that Call of Duty would remain on PlayStation for several more years after the acquisition goes through, if it goes through. And then we get this little clap back from Jim saying, hey, well, that doesn't really work for us. Right off the top, Jirard, what do you think of all this? What do you think of Jim's response and how it's all going down? What's your take?
Oh, man. To me, he's just like, I'm gonna throw it out there and let everyone fight and just Shutter Island this shit, fade away, evaporate through the walls and let them fight it out. He just wanted to get that 1-2 hit and then peace. Because this to me sounds like a set it and forget it vibe. He just want to set the record straight. It's their fault. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, he is right to get messy and public about it. Like if COD is gonna get pulled from PlayStation, which I don't think it would be, I think Microsoft absolutely knows that like the value of having their games on other consoles, look at Minecraft and the success of that, like, but they would never, I don't think they would ever pull it completely. Well, I feel like maybe Jim is either angling for like a better deal, but like, they're going to lose all that exclusivity. Like in my mind, COD, like packs, drops, DLC, like the exclusivity has always been with PlayStation, or like the vast majority of the time has been with PlayStation. And so you're getting rid of the mind share of, you know, what people associate with Call of Duty, like where they want to play it. And so Jim's getting messy and I kind of love it.
Yeah, well, I think actually, Gene, what's your take on this? What do you think, man?
I kind of agree with Lucy that he's probably just like, well, you know, like I also agree with Jirard. It just feels like he just threw a grenade in a room and it just like, like he just want to see what happens. But also like, it just sounds like he's trying to buy for time, you know, to kind of throw it out there. You know, he didn't need to say anything, you know, like Phil didn't really say anything that we didn't really already know. So like his citation of Phil Spencer putting out in the public was like, well, we knew that like several months ago. Like Phil hasn't said anything new since the news that Activision was being bought. So I don't know what he was trying to accomplish other than like just really trying to just make the case and trying to stall things, I guess, you know.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I do recall one of the filings to one of the regulatory bodies globally saying Xbox essentially said we don't want COD to become an exclusive because the dollars and cents don't line up. Okay, that's not our plan. It's unlikely that it would shift. Like we basically can't make up our money through an exclusive deal versus the loss of revenue that we would have from taking away from PlayStation. Okay, I definitely remember that was a thing that one of the filings said. Now fast forward, you got a situation where Phil's basically saying, well, it is going to become an exclusive and it's going to happen inside of 6 years because the existing agreement is 3 years. And then Phil's talked about another 3 years on top of that. So you sort of can't have it both ways. Like either you are going to make it an exclusive and that's what you've told Jim Ryan that you would do, or you're not going to make an exclusive because the dollars and cents don't line up, which is what your industry, your regulatory filings have said. So if Jim is sort of calling out Phil's doublespeak on this, then that's a good thing, obviously, because you can't have it both ways. But I don't exactly know what was said, in what context, how binding all of that is. I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of, to kind of add to that, Ralph, it kind of feels, I mean, I don't know. When I hear Phil Spencer say that he's not about console separation, he wants people to play on multiple platforms. Obviously, the value, like we said earlier, of Minecraft being playable on Nintendo Switch, on PlayStation 3 even, it makes sense to make sure that everyone can get their hands on it. To me, the vibe might be is that Jim Ryan and PlayStation at large, they see this opportunity of a contract renewal, and they go, well, what if we got a better deal now that it's out of the hands of Activision Blizzard and now in the new parent hands, right? The teenager's gone. Now the adults come in. Let's talk to the parents and see if we can get a better deal. And maybe Jim Ryan's using that to his advantage. Maybe he's going, you know what? If I create a public shitstorm and smack that beehive and get gamers all riled up, it'll make Microsoft rethink how they approach working with us. I don't know. I don't know. I don't care either way. I think I like all consoles, and like we said earlier, I'm all for everyone enjoying whatever they want. But I don't know. This just seems, again, I think Gene said it best. It sounds like he dropped a grenade in a room and then walked away.
Sure.
I also
think. Oh, sorry, go on. You go.
I also think, Ralph, you tweeted earlier about how, it's rich that he's saying this when Sony has been locking exclusives for decades now, basically, right? Yeah. I don't think Jim Ryan cares that he sounds hypocritical, he's a smart guy. Like, I'm sure he knows it, sure. And to be clear, I like Jim. I've always enjoyed my discussions with him, and he likes to talk to me for some reason. So I do think that he's smart, and I think he doesn't care that it sounds hypocritical. He's just saying what these governments might need to hear,
Yeah. Because, I mean, at its core, it is, okay, look, if you really want to suspend and you want to look at this at a very intellectual macro level, you might say that Sony's exclusivity deals all happened on an even footing, whereby there is a platform for competition, and Xbox could have secured those deals had they positioned correctly, paid enough money, whatever else. And that the acquisition of a publisher of this size removes that competitive playing field. Okay, so it is a fundamentally different thing. Of course it is. Absolutely. They are different, sure. At the same time, Japan has essentially been a PlayStation exclusive for 30 years, right? That is outside of the Nintendo output. Sony has strategically locked down the very best output from that island or those islands for 30 years, and most of the best. And I think it is a bit rich for then Sony at this point to turn around and be like, oh, I don't know, man. That's going to influence people's consoles purchase decision. We think we're not so okay with that, as they pay to extend the Final Fantasy VII remake exclusive window. You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous, obviously, but you're right. I think, Gene, you're absolutely correct. Where it's like Jim's a businessman. He knows what he needs to say to get some leverage in this, and that's exactly what he's doing. So. Yeah. But do you guys actually think, I mean, I guess we haven't really spoken. Do you think Microsoft should acquire Activision Blizzard? I mean, is this making us rethink that equation? Is it giving us pause? Like any thoughts?
It's funny
on
that there's all this discourse about Call of Duty when I think both Phil and I think the books show that Call of Duty is not the biggest moneymaker for Activision Blizzard. It's the mobile division, right?
I was going to say, Everyone always forgets the king in Activision Blizzard King, and that's what they're really buying it for.
Yeah.
I think if, personally speaking, just thinking about what's been going on at Activision Blizzard, specifically on the Blizzard side for the last several years, if this acquisition attributes or even aids a little bit to the cultures of those companies improving significantly, then I think it's good. Just because we're at that point now where Activision Blizzard specifically is a company that's been around for 20 plus years and is revered and trusted with so many IPs and so many games, and they're coming up with new stuff like Overwatch and Hearthstone and they're
Diablo Immortal.
Yeah,
beloved
titles.
Diablo 4
very slowly.
Right,
Still
but I mean
slowly.
for a while though, it was literally just we are the World of Warcraft company, right? Like that's all it really was. And then they brought back
And StarCraft.
And StarCraft and Diablo,
right,
StarCraft.
But there was a while where it was like there was a good while where it was like we only make these 2 IPs, and then it was suddenly we brought back Diablo. Here's Overwatch. There's a card game, Hearthstone.
Sure.
We're supporting the esports scenes within those communities with StarCraft 2 and with Overwatch. Like there was a huge shift in how they approached taking care of their communities, and then we found out all this bad stuff and. Now it kind of, I mean, I can't speak for everyone out there, but it kind of like it makes people feel bad to play Blizzard IP now, right? Like knowing that so many people were in pain, so many bad things happened. So for me, and maybe I'm just speaking, candidly, but I hope that at the very least, the one positive that comes from this is that Microsoft, as the parent company, goes, hey, please stop this and take care of your employees properly, and we'll make sure that they're fine. So
right,
that's my hope. Sorry, Gene.
That's a great take. No, right, because there's just no accountability within Activision. The board isn't going to do anything. The board wasn't going to do anything.
Right.
You report to the HR that reports to Bobby. So it's like,
Sure.
a lot. I think a lot of people are wondering, like, what do we do with a problem like Activision? And it's like there wasn't much else to do, I guess, other than take over the company and change the company.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I think in an ideal world, I probably wouldn't want Microsoft to purchase Activision Blizzard. I think that level of industry consolidation, especially after Bethesda, I think we were talking to Jeff Keighley the other week, and he's basically like, oh, Bethesda plus Activision Blizzard, that's essentially half an E3 right there. And he was right. Like, that used to be an entire hall. They've acquired a massive chunk of the games industry, and that sort of consolidation is concerning. And that goes across the board as well. But because obviously Sony are on their own buying spree, but they don't have anywhere near the same purse strings that Microsoft does. It's a completely different equation. They're buying this for nearly $70 billion. Obviously, it gives you pause and you think, well, ideally they wouldn't do that, but there are serious cultural challenges at Activision Blizzard. If this improves those, then, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And, that's that. But yeah, I mean, look, do you guys think then it's within Sony's rights to demand a clause that says COD stays non-exclusive, like stays multi-platform forever? Do you think that's fair or unfair?
I think they're lucky they're getting 3 years extra on top of 3 years. That's
right. Okay.
I think they're lucky.
Yeah, right.
I
Sure.
don't know. I think at the end of the day, like Jim does bring up the point where it's like it's our gamers, and it's like it's beyond the dick waving of buying, spending billions of dollars on company and IP. It's like at the end of the day, it is the people who are playing the games who are going to be the ones to suffer that. If we talked about it, like we have everything. We are exceedingly lucky in that regard that our jobs allow us the resources and the means to be able to have every console. Not everyone has that. And if Call of Duty is your one big game that you buy every year and you are only a PlayStation gamer because you made a decision at one point, you're like, okay, this seems to be where the games are going, like that I want to play, they're in line with what I want. And then if COD one day isn't there anymore, that fucking sucks. And like, it has nothing to do with you. We are the type of people who follow this shit. But like, talking to my family when they're like, oh, I don't know what game to buy. And just like me explaining to them like different sequels and different, like the difference between PS4 and PS5. Some people who enjoy play games, like they just don't have the same breadth of knowledge. And like, you could be locked into owning a system and then end up in a couple of years not being able to play or buy the games that you want because of some business deal like this. So
yeah, no, that's it. But obviously, and then the flip side is that Xbox people are like, well, welcome to our world. That's been the way of it
That's
for
been that
the
for
last
decades,
forever.
boys.
So how do you like them apples? And I think that's where the conversation is going to continue and whatever else. But what's your bet? Do you reckon this merger is going to go through or not? Like, what odds would you put on it? Yes?
I think
I'm going to say it's not going to happen?
I think it's going to go through.
I think it's going to go through, and I think if they do any other major acquisition after this, That's where the fisticuffs are coming.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
where all
Well,
the governments are going to go, hey, you can't do this.
Who is it? The FTC? That's when they'll be like,
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, and I think
Microsoft.
I think Microsoft will probably lose the public in that regard too, because it's like, okay, well, that's too much, man. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's already a lot. Like Jeff said the other week, like that's half at E3. It's already so much. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when the scuttlebutt was they were going to buy like Sega?
Imagine
in the alternate timeline where that
that second conversation I kept hearing time and time again.
Me too.
I thought when I heard Activision Blizzard, I was like, whoa, where's the second conversation? That was the news we were all talking about for a little bit.
Dude, do you think that if they bought Sega, it would be a Yakuisition? Because they would get Yakuza.
We're all clapping. The mics are muting it, but we're all clapping. God damn you, microphones! The stupid technology robs Ruby of the Lucy of the applause she needs.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Very good.
Thank you, Lucy.
But you know what's gonna be really funny if all these Square acquisition numbers come true about Sony. It'd be so hilarious if in a month from now Jim Ryan announces that welcome to the family image and Square Enix's logo is there. I mean, oh God, the irony in that moment is going to be so thick.
And then Phil just tweets,
Phil will just do like the rolling eyes emoji.
Like we never had Final Fantasy anyways, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's all he'll do. Oh,
no,
God.
Phil would do something like, I'm just enjoying playing Call of Duty on my Xbox or something like.
That's right.
Underhanded. It was great.
Well, look, that wasn't the only Sony news this week, because obviously there was a lot of capital D discourse about The Last of Us Part 1, which dropped. It feels like a long time ago that it dropped, but it was like, 6 days ago now? Sure. Even though it feels 6 months plus. So obviously we had a chat about this before on the podcast, and we questioned whether or not that game is going to earn its $70 price tag. The game is now out. It has achieved an 88 on Metacritic, suggesting that certainly the critics believe that this is a worthwhile release. But even those outlets were sort of critical of whether this was needed. You know, it was kind of like, cool, it's still a great game and they've done a pretty good job with this remake/remaster, but you probably didn't need to do this, I think was the general consensus. I think outside of the commentariat, there's general agreement that the $70 price tag is way too high. When I uploaded my video for that was like one of the most disliked videos I've done in years.
Wow.
Because I was like,
really?
Yeah, because I was like, look, I recommend this depending on how much you want to pay for it. Like, I'm not going to tell you how much you should pay for it, but the product itself is good, and I would recommend getting it at whatever price point you feel. Yeah, at whatever price point you feel comfortable with. But there was just a lot of dislikes and a lot of anger in that. Mm-hmm. Everyone's like, "Oh, Shill Up is back." Haven't seen classic Shill Up in a while. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. But people really feel legitimately ripped off by this. They feel as though it doesn't do enough to justify that price tag. They're uncomfortable with $70 as a price point at all, let alone for a remake that a lot of people don't feel is a remake. They think it's more of a remaster. It doesn't go far enough. So I guess wanted to sort of check in with you guys now, because first of all, have we all played it? Gene, I know you have. Mm-hmm. Luce, have you played? And Jirard, have you had a chance to play it yet?
No,
haven't played it. Okay, cool.
I was at PAX.
Mm. That'll do it. That's yeah.
I mean, you don't need to play it, you know.
Yeah. But you can still contribute to the conversation in the sense that it's the same game, you know, like it's still the same game. Okay, not quite. Like there are some notable changes, I think, but obviously a lot of people feel not far enough. So let's just check in. Do we feel as though this game has earned that $70 price tag? Luce, what's your take? Gun to head. I'm going to say to you, you got $70 in your pocket right now. Okay, all right. Okay. On what basis? What do you think?
So I've been playing it again, and you know, this is the third or something time that I've played The Last of Us, and it's like, yeah, I like it. I think the visual upgrades are definitely fantastic. I think it feels better to play. I think the real unsung hero is definitely the audio. I remember seeing people tweeting about like the audio is ridiculous, and
so
I dug out my headset and I've been playing with it. It's been great. The accessibility options, fantastic. Part of me, the fact that there's no factions or multiplayer, like, but the $70 is sticks in the craw for many already. Like, game development is very expensive. We know this. And $70 for a game that came out 10 years ago with no, and like, this is, your mileage may vary where it comes to the phrase, like, what a meaningful update to this game would be. Yeah, I don't know if it is worth 70, and like, it's art. Your value of like what something is worth is going to be very different, but like, for a full price game that will probably end up, and I don't say this with malice because people worked really hard on this game at Naughty Dog and it clearly shows, like, it's fantastic, I still love it, it'll end up on PlayStation Plus, or it'll be in certainly the premium tier or the game catalog very, 6 to 12 months time. The thing that I think as well is, like, these accessibility options were not in the remaster, right? Like and so that's kind of another part of the equation where it's like, is this some kind of like disability tax that you have to pay this amount of money to play the game at all? Which is a whole other conversation that I think we would need to get someone way more versed in the topic. Like, we should get Steven Spawn on the podcast in general, but like, I think he'd be really great to talk to you about this issue. And so, yeah, I have very mixed feelings about it because I'm playing it and I'm enjoying it and I'm doing that weird thing where I was like, the trophy's different. I could get the platinum on this one without having to do grounded. I could probably do that. So I'm kind of working my way and I'm enjoying it. But like, yeah, $70 is difficult for me.
Sure. So, Gene, I know you are a massive Last of Us 1 and 2 fan. And I know have you actually finished this? Have you finished part 1 twice now? Did you tell me?
I played it 4 times already now, by now.
Wait, 4 times already?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I always hear all these reviews and say, like Greg Miller or Lucy, I say, oh yeah, I played it 3 or 4 times, like total, right? And it's like, I played The Last of Us like over and over again on the PS3, like dozens of times. It was a game that I loved playing over and over again because like I knew everything. It was really comfortable, And I know that's a weird thing to say for such a depressing, dour game, but it was.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
like, I used to listen to like murder podcasts, and that would be my comfort thing. I moved past that, but like, I get the comfort in the like knowing stuff, and like, it doesn't matter what the subject matter is, like, it's comforting.
Exactly, and like, I look at The Last of Us as, and I don't mean this as an insult to the game itself, but like, I look at it as a like simple Resident Evil 4, where like there's just not a lot going on in the gameplay besides punching and shooting zombies and walking through environments and like picking stuff up. You don't have to worry about where the stuff goes anywhere. You're just hoovering up stuff, and like, it just like connects to a lizard brain stuff of mine. Like, I have infinite like crafting options on when I play The Last of Us, and I'm still going around picking stuff up. I don't need any of that stuff, but like I'm pretending that Joel needs to say, oh, well, let's look around and see what's around here, Ellie. And then I do that because I like playing the role of Joel, going around picking stuff up, Ellie, like that's fun to me, because I like these characters and I like doing that over and over again. So that's why, like, in my review in the Washington Post, like, I likened it to like playing a role play, like you're playing a role, and I think Noah Gervais on YouTube and even Tim Rogers has also kind of made that comparison where it feels like you're playing like a role in the theater, and you are Joel, and Joel is a fun character to kind of be, and he controls better now. The gameplay modifier stuff, like, it's very specific to my taste, but I love slow motion bullet time effects, and the fact that they added that in to The Last of Us as an unlockable after you beat the game once. That's why I beat the game twice, because it's like you unlock all that stuff after you beat it, and it's like, okay, well, let me run through the game again with full loadout, which is an option that was not available in the first game. So you can shoot those first guys at test shoots with an assault rifle as opposed to your little pea shooter, right? And then I'm just running through the game, shooting everybody with my assault rifle in slow motion, like I'm Neo Joel, like Neo is a hobo, and he's just running through and just killing everybody he sees, and that's just so fun to me,
Sounds like a Resident Evil like speed run. After you finish it a bunch of times, and then you just play it again and again and again, and do it faster every time.
I'm basically playing like a Resident Evil game, basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
sure.
So for me, like, I bought the game at $70. I got the code for it, and I just bought it again.
You're right. And so So in your mind, then, it does deserve that $70 price.
For
tag.
someone
That's
like
a
me,
company-
it's not really much of a question. If I really love The Last of Us, and I do, which is such a weird thing to say because it's not even one of my favorite games of all time, you know. But
Sure.
like I just love playing it, and I loved playing Last of Us Part 2 too. You know, like just going around murdering all of Seattle as Ellie is just so much fun too. And
Like, Gene, I saw you tweet this where you were like, it's a cinephile buying a 4K
exactly,
Blu-ray. Like,
exactly.
It's like me with Lord of the Rings. Like, I have VHS, DVD, extended editions on DVD, regular editions on DVD, the whole collection. And then last year or 2 years ago, I spent $120 buying the UHD Blu-rays with the new regrade. And it was literally like the fucking Malibu Stacy, but she's got a new hair.
Yeah, it's the same movie. It's the same movie we watched back when we were kids, right?
And so, like, when I say I don't feel The Last of Us is worth the $70 to me, it's like because maybe I'm not doing what Gene's doing. I'm not like playing it through over and over again. I like the game a lot. I love the Left Behind DLC a lot, but it's like I'm not taking that extra step to, you know, I have to complete my collection. I have to have
Exactly. And I just bought the Lord of the Rings 4K UHD too.
It's so good.
It's really good. It's amazing.
it's
you know,
amazing.
I love it.
Like, I bought that's the fourth box set of the Lord of the Rings I bought, and the Godfather too. You know, I bought the Godfather box sets like 5 times. You know,
it's like literally I've got RoboCop, Godfather, Back to the Future,
RoboCop,
Lord
exactly,
of
what
the
you
Rings,
said,
Indiana
Ralph.
Jones.
RoboCop,
It's all there, man.
Yeah.
And I guess that was sort of the point that I was making in my video as well, which is, you know, we don't really have these conversations when it comes to music and movies. We're like, yeah, I'm going to buy it again and it's going to look slightly better and I'm going to pay the same price or more. Why do you think it is in the world of video games? Is it purely to do with the fact that audiences have been conditioned to expect X, Y, and Z up to this point and this bucks the trend? Why do you think we have this conversation about, oh, that's not worth $70, you know, even though it looks, and again, I made the point in the video where the visual leap between this and the previous one is gigantic. And the visual leap that we get from the new version of Lord of the Rings is like a little bit better if you really squint, you know? What and the color grade, which a lot of people don't like. But why do you guys think that this exists in this medium and not others?
Do you think it's because gamers still have we have the chip on our shoulder? Like, you know, I mean, if you think about it, we're it's a relatively new medium that I guess has withstood more scrutiny than movies and TV shows just for merely existing, right? If it's not years of mum's basement, that kind of stuff. Oh, you're a nerd for playing video games. And so maybe, I don't know, it's kind of like this ingrained, and I'm sorry, I just had COVID, so I'm a bit flabby and I sound disgusting.
You're doing great.
Undermines my point.
Didn't even
But
notice.
like,
Crushing
but you know, it's like we kind of feel like we are owed because we have had to go through like a bunch of people picking on us until video games were cool. And that is a idea that I flung out. It's certainly not the case for everyone, but it's an interesting, like, kind of more psychological approach to it, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Yep.
The price point is the issue to me at the end of the day.
It's an expensive fucking hobby at the end of the day.
It's yeah. I mean, look, this is the third time this game has been released again, and it's not a matter of like, yes, the comparisons that you've made, Ralph, about, you know, VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to Ultra Edition, absolutely 100%. If the $70 price tag was the special edition that included all of the bells and whistles that you would normally get in a special edition anniversary type thing of a game, then I would absolutely say the price is justified. However, the true question is, who is this game for? And if it's for the fans that originally played The Last of Us to play it again for the third time, that's why the $70 price tag is an issue. It's, to me, it's if you're gonna have the way that I would do it, because I'm, you know, such a great person to influence for this whole thing, right? Is I would make it, if I was Sony, I would have gone, hey, according to PlayStation Plus and your PlayStation account and your PlayStation Network account, you have purchased The Last of Us on PS3 and on PS4 remastered. So you're buying the game for the third time. Here's your discount code. The game is $30.
Yeah.
That'd be a huge win.
You do that.
I agree.
You do that. You're immediately saying thank you to the fans who purchased the game before. Here are the upgrades. The upgrades you're paying for are a little more on the accessibility side, a little more on the visual fidelity. You don't have that feeling of FOMO, and you don't have to feel guilty for spending $70 on a game that you would otherwise would love to play, but not spend $70. And Lucy, you just said something that I immediately thought about, because I always buy games, even if I'm given codes. Because I believe the world goes round. If you want to support something you believe in, you got to spend that money. Nothing is free, right? In the case of The Last of Us, it's that situation of, I'm going to wait until PlayStation Plus. It's going to come to PlayStation Plus. I'm okay waiting because I've played the game twice before. And most people who have a PlayStation 5 right now are the most hardcore of hardcore gamers. And everyone else out there can't get a PS5 because you can't even buy one. So if this is for an audience that has never experienced The Last of Us, the people who don't even have a PlayStation 5 can't experience it anyways. So to me, it's like you're marketing it to the hardcore gamers who played the first two games, who played the remaster. That's why $70 is kind of the hard sell for this, in my opinion.
Sure.
My thought is, well, one, if the PS4 remaster didn't exist, then I feel like the conversation would kind of change.
I agree.
Yeah. If it wasn't playable on the PS4 and like a 60 frames per second good version already that didn't exist, then this probably wouldn't be a problem, because the PS3 version looks old as hell.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the remaster of The Last of Us was a launch day PS Plus title on PS5.
Yeah, and it had factions too. So
yeah,
and it had factions. Yeah, that's
but
brutal.
To go back to your question, Ralph, about why we don't talk about this in terms of movie or music, because album releases are always being released. How many fucking re-releases the Beatles have had over the decades?
Sure, Fleetwood Mac, baby, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. I think the reason why is because video games are at this weird intersection of art and product, like technical product. So like it's kind of like, obviously it's art, right? Like that's not even a conversation here. But it's like it's also a technical product. It's a feat of engineering, and maybe to some folks it's kind of like buying a 2013 Camry at 2022 price. Like
Sure.
it's more product than anything else, and I think a lot of people kind of look at that, because look at how many people are gauging games based on like time engaged with,
Yeah.
and that's just part of like our mindset, like for a lot of people,
I think it's a really good point. I totally agree with that. I haven't even really considered that, but no, I totally agree. I think as well. Well, I mean, sort of a separate point, but I mean, that upgrade path thing. Right, that is something that you can do by virtue of our medium. Like the upgrade path for Lord of the Rings 4K, that's not really a thing. But by virtue of the way that we package and buy games, that is going to be an option for us. And yeah, I think it is I think it was a big mistake for Sony not to do something like that. What's your sense overall of how this is going to impact Sony's kind of current positioning in the market? Because I think that they're having some struggles. I think Phil Spencer's very good at PR. I think Jim Ryan is really, really bad at it, right? What do you guys think about this sort of, what impact will this have on PlayStation's brand overall, do you think?
I don't think I genuinely don't think it'll matter when God of War comes out.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think everyone will fucking forget about it.
Reckon? All right.
I think that's like to Sony's benefit is they have these absolute jewels of IP that are just like you can just dangle and people will just go.
Sure.
I think we talked about this a long time ago in our pre-production friends per second.
The lost tapes.
The lost tapes, which none of you will ever see because the secrets we divulge. I think I said this, and it's the kind of thing where we as a gaming community online, right? Games journalists, game influencers, streamers, games media at large, we think everyone in our community is plugged in 24/7. We think the internet, we think reading articles online, we think all of us are in the know and the drip feed conversation connects with us. But in actuality, there's a large portion of the world that is nowhere near connected as we all think. And so you can go to the store today and you can see a guy with The Last of Us. I think Alana Pierce told a story on one of her videos. Is like, she went to the grocery store and saw a guy with The Last of Us tattoo. And it was before Last of Us 2 came out, where a lot of the controversial leaks and stuff were coming out, the story. And Alana goes like, oh, wow, what a great tattoo. Are you excited for the second game? And he's like, oh, I'm so excited. And she goes, oh, you must be bummed about the news then. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Like that precedence is, we all think we're in the know, but in actuality, there's a lot of people out there who kind of get to live blissfully,
peacefully, yes.
in their own bubble.
It's when people say like the number of people who are on Twitter compared to, the world population. And it's like, it's so easy to get caught up in, like you were saying, like online stuff, being chronically online as we all are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I know people I went to school with and they're like, oh, I don't have Twitter. I don't have Instagram. I don't do any of that. And I'm like,
so jealous of them.
What are you?
Oh my God, that would be such a great life.
Like, I don't know. I feel like I would live that life, but I'm too far gone.
That's right. It's too late for us now.
It's way too late.
It's too late.
We're here. This is it.
Oh, man. And I guess final question, which is a risky one, but playing through the game again, did it reframe your thoughts around Last of Us Part 2 at all?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I'll start first. Because one thing I noticed about this game is that I think I noticed Joel smiling more. And I feel like that they added those faces in. Like, there's a moment when Joel opens a crate and a big rat comes out and Ellie's like, oh, that's a big rat. And then Joel kind of looks back at her and smirks. And I'm just like, I don't remember that from the PS3 version. So I feel like that they added a few more moments of warmness obviously in their faces during the acting, right? But even during the gameplay, it kind of makes me appreciate Part 2 even more because I really do feel like that Part 2 really respected their relationship and where it was going. So I do feel like that so much of what happens in Part 2 makes sense. People will be like, oh, I wish Ellie was joking more. I wish she wasn't so murderous. And it's like, dude, she immediately hit Bill after he handcuffed her. She is jumping at people to fight and stab them and murder. But she was gonna stab Joel, right?
The first moment he walked in the door, yeah.
So when you see that, you're like, oh, okay, of course she would go to Seattle and just kill everybody, because she's that kind of person.
Yeah,
she's been that kind of person. She's lived in this world for such a long time,
Yeah. Sure.
So yeah, interesting.
How about
question.
you, Luce? Is it any?
Honestly, I
further reflections?
No, so I only played Last of Us Part 2 once, but it's been a game that I felt over the past couple months or so. Maybe it's because I've seen, stuff about of Part 1, the HBO show. I'm like, oh, I could go back to it. And I remember enjoying it doesn't feel like the right word. It felt like something that I experienced and I was fully devoted to and I loved. But I definitely have the separation from it. But replaying Part 1 has made me want to go back and just experience it again. So I don't know. It's been really nice being back in that world. I feel like it's just very well realized with very specific rules in the game world and in the lore and in the story that I kind of just really gravitate towards. Also because it's really dark and I love depressing shit. So I don't know. I want to go back to it. Maybe if I have time, but the next couple months, there's no games coming out. It's fine.
No, that's not.
Oh, let me add
October
real
and
quick.
November
Also,
are famous for their.
Let me add also real quick to be critical of the remake. I do think that it obviously would have been a lot more fun if they added dodging and prone and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that they could have done a little bit more to the level design or have a remix version where the enemy placements are different. Anything to make it different, but it's pretty much the same.
Sure.
So yeah. So it did make me miss Ellie's movements a lot more.
Yeah. Right. Interesting.
That's the thing. I feel like I have enough distance from that where it's mostly the muscle memory from Part 1 kicking in rather than remembering just how agile Ellie was.
Sure. Yeah, for me, playing through it again, it didn't really change my perspective on 2. It kind of just reinforced it in many ways because I realized that number 1 has I think it's ultimately, look, everyone's going to have their own take on this, but I think it's ultimately quite a beautiful story despite its darkness, and I think that it's like the Firefly thing is like when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. I think that was the essence of 1, and that's what made it bearable. And I think 2 completely loses that. And so that's why I really didn't enjoy that time. And going back in and playing 1 again, I was reminded of, there is this subtle beauty that kind of flickers at moments and then eventually kind of like, bursts into this relationship between the two of them, or blossoms or blooms, I should say. That was it's always very special. And similarly, there's this real sort of swashbuckling quality to number 1, like the sort of adventures that they're going on. They have this sort of roller coaster kind of vibe to them versus 2 is, I think, much more of a trudge through the jungle. Like you have to sort of hack away at it with a machete. Every inch feels so hard fought. It's like the roller coaster is always going up, and it's never doing that fun down thing,
which is why I made the comparison to Resident Evil 4 in part 1, because like it does kind of feel like a roller coaster, kind of like a ride, where it's like it's so well paced, so it does feel pleasurable, Whereas part 2 is terribly well paced, I think, like honestly, in terms of like what kind of emotions you go through,
Sure, yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's it. It's $69.95 at your local video games retailer. Pick it up now while it's really expensive. Get it before Sony increase the price, because that's the thing that Sony do.
Suddenly they just do that.
I'm joking. That it is badly timed along with their the price hike of the PS5. The new models just rolled out as well with new componentry. It doesn't affect us, but there's a new model PS5. Don't worry, it's the same for us.
A bit lighter,
but a little bit lighter. But for everybody else, it's just the same PS5. Only now it's more expensive, and that's that. But look, we obviously have been talking about Sony plenty, and we've been having a bit of a dig here and there. What say we have a bit of a dig at Microsoft, Team Green now, just to keep it fair and balanced.
Nintendo's getting off scot-free this episode, are they?
No, if we started talking about Nintendo, I'd get demonetized. That's a whole other conversation.
Look, as the Nintendo shill of this podcast, I will allow us to not talk about Nintendo.
There we go. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But it was a rough week for Xbox in the context of their flagship IP, which is Halo, obviously.
Is it fair to still call Halo the flagship IP? Oh
God, that question hurts in itself.
I'm so sorry, but
that question. But I agree. I mean, look, obviously you've got Forza, which doesn't have the same sort of broad appeal, but it is universally adored.
Minecraft too, obviously.
Minecraft, obviously. I mean, Gears of War is pretty second tier now, I think. I don't think Gears of War is ever going to be that kind of top tier.
It's been dormant for a bit too long at this point.
I think they make good games, but I just think that whole... I really liked the last Gears game, but even then you can kind of see how it fits into a more narrow niche of the video game space versus something like Halo, which you imagine everyone is going to play and talk about. It's going to dominate the scene, whatever else. But Halo Infinite had a fantastic launch, I would say.
It's great.
And then a very rocky post-launch period owing to some technical issues, but also mainly to do with the online side, where it's a live service. We were sort of promised lots of content that would flow. That certainly wasn't the case. We're now in season 2, and there's been very few new maps or modes. In addition, there was plenty of missing content for the multiplayer. So missing content on the single player stuff as well, mind you. Campaign co-op still not available, but. This week things got worse because 343 issued an update, and the headline offerings were number 1. Forge is coming. That's the map creation tool. That's coming towards the end of the year, and it does look pretty cool. So that's nice. That's great. Number 2, the current season is being extended until March of next year, meaning season 2 will be a total of 10 months long. That is crazy in the world of live services.
You can make a whole human being in between that time.
Destiny will have put out essentially almost 4 seasons in that same amount of time to Halo's 1. And most games really that are operating a live service are doing it that sort of cadence. And the big one is that couch co-op That's been cancelled. It's been promised repeatedly. It was promised as a mainstay, non-negotiable feature after Halo 5, and everyone was so pissed off about it. 343 have announced this week, hey, not so much. And even though it actually works, because someone found a workaround to actually get couch co-op working on the Xbox Series X, it's playable. It works fine. Even though that works, 343 have announced that it is been officially cancelled, and they will not push that feature. So, did I miss anything in that announcement? Gene, did I get it all?
Oh, that's all the bad news. Yeah.
It's all the bad news. So I guess it's just a moment to sort of check in on how we're feeling about Halo Infinite, 343, etc. I mean, first of all, we all played Halo Infinite. Yes? Has anyone here not played it?
Mm-hmm.
Who played it?
Cool. I played for a couple hours.
Yeah, right. Sure.
Yeah.
Have our thoughts on the launch of the game, have those thoughts changed, or do we still feel the same way we did, when it first came out, or what's that? Gene, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I gave the campaign a 10/10, and a lot of people like to go after me for that.
That's a big number.
It's a huge number. I really like the campaign, and I still do.
Sure.
And like a lot of people make fun of me for saying that it's a game that I'll play for decades, and it's like, you know what? I played the Halo Infinite campaign 2 nights ago. I played it all the way through. I enjoy it. As you guys heard, I enjoy replaying games over and over again. So
what are you, Gene, the completionist? Stick to your lane, buddy. Jesus.
Dude, this is why I love you so much, right? I was like, man, this guy is after my own heart, So I enjoyed the campaign, and I still do. And obviously, every single time anyone criticizes Halo Infinite, you always have to say, "Oh, but the core gameplay is good and the fundamentals are good," because it is. It is objectively good. And I called it one of the best feeling first-person shooters, and it still is. And I think one of my Twitter followers said earlier today, it's like, we wouldn't be wanting more content if this was a bad game.
Yeah.
Because the game is so
100%.
Because this game is so fun, we want more stuff to do in it. They just haven't done that at all. So
Yep. Sure. And Luce, what are you looking back on your initial feelings of Halo Infinite at launch? Have they evolved?
I had such a good fucking time playing Halo Infinite at launch. It was the first time in a long time where a bunch of my friends and I were like, okay, it's 10 p.m. I've got a beer. Let's squat up. Let's just play. And like, we were having so much fun. Like and to Gene's point, it feels so good to play. It just, and there were moments when I was playing it and it would be like, the game would just sing, and it would be just some incredible gaming moments that like I certainly cherish and like think on fondly. But right now, no one I know is playing. I might hop on a lunchtime or something and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is still a great game, but this is the same stuff I was playing at launch. I spent $20 on it overall. I bought the Battle Pass and I bought cat ears. And
Everyone bought the cat ears.
Everyone bought the cat ears. And I was like, I'm
that's all you can do. You just buy the cat ears. That's all.
Yeah,
that's the only thing left to do in the game.
Even if I grind out that battle pass, right? It's like first of all, I'm not seeing any of this shit. Like a different color arm plate. Like that's not what I would consider a meaningful unlock or upgrade. You still get the great moments of, oh, okay, I've completed a challenge or I've completed one of my dailies. That feels good to do. Like checking stuff off, boxes going up, ticks. Yeah, great. But at the end of the day, it was like, okay, I need more from this. And the thing about the couch co-op is like, I personally wasn't going to play it in couch co-op, but I remember so many of my friends being like, I'm going to hold on the campaign until I can play it like with my brother or with my sister or with my friend, just like we did when we were kids. Like, that's what I'm holding out for. And then, 343 going, yeah, it's coming. It's just going to take a little bit. And then, nah. That
was my next question, really. Like, how big a deal is couch co-op actually? Because obviously, it drops and everyone has their feelings about it. But is it fake outrage in inverted commas to complain about this? Or is couch co-op still a really big deal in 2022?
I think the outrage is more about the broken promise rather than the missing feature,
Sure.
Because like I'm not gonna play it. A lot of folks might not, but then a lot of folks will, because like if I had a son, I'd be like, here, son, let's play this together. This is what dad used to do back in the day, and we're going to do this right now, you know. So that part is missing, you know. Yeah.
I agree with Eugene, and not only that, but I also think it's not just that it's a missing feature, it's a missing staple in identity of Halo. If Halo never had this feature, I don't think anyone would care as much.
It wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't, yeah. But like a lot of what made Halo so popular over the years was that couch co-op experience, right? Of the split screen. And more importantly, not to like blow smoke up the ass of old technology, but playing split screen on a CRT TV that's 32 inches is a different experience than playing split screen co-op on a 70-inch TV in 4K ultra high definition, right? Like you're basically bringing another monitor over to your friend's house without having to do that. So it feels like the missing feature is kind of a missing promise in that way.
Yeah. For sure. I think the obvious byproduct of all of this is that hashtag Fire343i or Industries was trending on Twitter when all this went down. And people are basically like, we've had enough. It's time to move on to a different developer. That 343 have had their shot, and it's time to give another developer a chance at this IP, potentially one of the Activision studios if that deal goes through, because you've got plenty of studios in that bucket that know how to make a good shooter. What do you guys think about that discourse? Do you think it's harsh? Do you think it's fair? Do you think 343 have had their shot? What do you guys think? Luce, will you kick us off?
I mean, I think hashtag Fire343i is so much easier to say in practice than it is to actually do. Like 343 Industries is a studio set up to be the custodians of the Halo franchise. Like, it's not as easy as just copy. Hey, let's copy my drive and give it to another studio and they can pick up where we left off, right? Like the amount of talent that's in there, the amount of money that's been pumped into that studio, whether Microsoft sees that as like sunk cost at this point, like I just don't think it's feasible for, at least at this point, especially with Halo Infinite being a live service game and to be it's, you know, infinite. It's in the name. And like the fact that they're working on the Master Chief Collection all at the same time, like it's very difficult to unshackle that from 343 and hand it over to another studio. Yes, there'll have been support studios that have been helping out on Halo, but like, I don't know, like unless it was going to be an entirely new game, like completely free of, you know, the old Bungie engine that they're probably still using. Oh no, what is it? The new one?
They have a new
Slipstream engine.
Slipstream. Yeah. Like, you have to take engine into consideration. Like, if you're going to give it to a new studio, are they going to make it in, what's the Call of Duty engine instead? Like, you know, that would be a very different feeling and looking game at the end of it. Like, I don't know. I think it's an interesting proposition, but not one that I think would be a reality, at least immediately. Because again, a lot of money involved in staffing up a studio, even ones that have shipped like huge first-person shooter. You know, you might want to get like some people from Halo to make sure that the lore is right or whatever. So it's an interesting proposition, but one that also sucks for the people at 343. Like, no one wants to make a bad game.
No.
And it fucking sucks that this has happened to Halo. But you also have to question how the fuck this has happened to Halo. Like, this is. We've been calling it Xbox's flagship franchise, and how the fuck this has been able to happen to Halo, and how they just like Xbox just has to take the fucking hits at this point. Like, there's nothing they can say, and that means that Xbox loses face, right? Like, there will be some serious conversations happening at 343. So, it's the kind of drama. Yeah.
I don't know, Jirard, what do you think, man? Do you think 343 have had their shot, or need more time, or what do you reckon?
As the world's biggest Halo fan, and by biggest Halo fan, I've only really played and completed Halo 1. So I'm very much the person to answer your question.
Of course, absolutely.
I am very qualified. You know, at the very least, I don't think it's a matter of taking Halo away from 343 that would solve the solution. I think it should be taking Halo to market with other studios. Yes. It It should be, let's take because I mean, look, I'm not the biggest Halo guy, obviously, but I'm sure there's some fascinating stories. You know, Golden Boy here at G4 every day is lore dumping on all of us about how awesome Halo is.
Yes.
And every time he does it, I'm like, that would be great to experience if it wasn't the Halo gameplay that I've been getting for the last few decades, right? Yes. Let's change it up. RTSs is a great style, but it's a very niche thing. Like, let's get a different game in a different engine, a different style for Halo. Let's turn it on its head and use the Halo franchise that way to explore different areas, or kind of how you insinuated, Ralph, maybe give it to the Call of Duty guys, see what they can come up with Halo, even if it's, acquisition through Microsoft or not. Like, I think that might be what's needed for Halo, is not to get rid of 343, but to challenge other studios to think outside of the play box that is Halo.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good angle on it. Gene, what do you think, man?
So many thoughts. Jirard definitely. I definitely echo Jirard's in that, like Jirard, you're a Nintendo fan. Look at how Nintendo treats Mario. We're getting a Ubisoft game, a Ubisoft Mario game in a couple months. That's awesome. Yeah, and it's a wicked game, and we get to see Ubisoft's RTS take on Mario. And we don't get that in Halo. The only Halo game we get is the really broken message that 343 puts out every 5 to 7 years. That's it. That's the only Halo that we ever get. There's no like Obsidian Halo. Like I love a Halo RPG. Halo Kart. Why not? Like the game is all about vehicles. Like why not?
There was Halo Wars, I guess, but.
There was Halo Wars, and that's about it. And
I know there was also was there Spartan Assault, was like that kind of isometric shooter.
Yeah, the mobile game. Yeah,
the mobile game.
Was that? Yeah.
Fire
was it mobile
Raven?
Or was it?
Please don't forget.
Oh, that's right. These little weird spin-offs.
Yeah.
Surprised there hasn't been like a card battler at this point. So.
And then for me, in terms of like Fire 343, I'm not in any position to tell anyone who should get fired or who should not. I definitely, don't feel qualified for that. I do. Here's my hot take: just unrelease Halo Infinite, for fuck's sake. Just take it off.
Unrelease
it. Take it back.
Take it offline. Take it offline.
Shit.
Because the live service thing is not working, and the more they keep trying to catch up on the live service thing, the more that they are so behind, and there's so much debt that they have to catch up on. It's like, dude, just put a pause on the whole thing. Made the campaign available offline, which it isn't. Because it's got goddamn DRM attached to it, right? And then just keep it offline and release a Halo game, for fuck's sake.
Or at the very least, find a studio who is very well experienced in games as a live service. And let them take the reins.
Well, I mean, I think as well, like, let's not forget, everyone says, 343 has no experience in live service. I'm sorry, but like, they've been managing the Master Chief Collection and Halo 5. Like, these are two games that have online components. They have new content drops on the reg in various ways. They're not as ambitiously live service as, your Destinys and your Apex, your Fortnite, whatever, but they are very much in that mold. And so it hasn't been this huge leap for 343 to step into the world of Halo Infinite. So I sort of always bristle when I hear that commentary, like, oh, this is so new to them. It's like, well, sort of, but also sort of not. And I feel like, I kind of feel like it's been kind of a lost decade for Halo. I mean, you really... And as brutal as it is, I do think that 343 have nailed that gameplay side of it. Full credit to that. I do think this is one of the best feeling shooters on the market, and they crushed that component of it. But Halo 4, not a great game. Halo 5, as we all know, was really, really bad. Master Chief Collection, terrible at launch. I wasn't a fan of Infinite's campaign, in particular its narrative and where it chose to take things. Sure. But also the open world, I think, was just really very, very basic. Like it's just a big sort of like tabula rasa, and you can roll around it on your Warthog, and that's kind of it, So I really think that another studio would provide a huge injection of creativity, vision, a new pivot for where this franchise could go. I would like to see a different studio take the lead on Halo. I think there would be a space within that for 343 to help with that live service delivery, to help maintain the game and whatever else. But also, I'd like to see them try another IP at this point, because they just have never hit a home run with Halo. And it's like I look at Guerrilla Games and the home run they were able to hit with Horizon when they were set free, so to speak. So, maybe Summer 343 supports another studio while they take Halo forward, and maybe the rest of 343 starts working on its own thing. Give them the chance to make something that they're truly passionate about and that they love. And maybe that is the shot in the arm they need. But Halo is essentially, as Lucy's question at the very start of this, I think, was the most emblematic of all of it. Can you really still call it the flagship? The fact that you have to ask that at all about Halo is just, it shows where this is at right now. So I think some big changes needed big time.
Well, I do want to just comment real quick, Ralph, because I don't want to dismiss what you said about how 343 doesn't, or what I said and Gene claimed about how 343 doesn't have experience with live service. I guess that's not so much what I meant in terms of what I was insinuating. I think in my mind, taking something like League of Legends or Apex or flipping Rumbleverse or Fortnite, right? Like those are games that are, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're free at their base level, and they are all about the monetization model to continue to fuel the economy of the game. That to me means that your overall methodology of how you approach it is going to be different versus with Master Chief Collection. I don't remember. Do you just pay for it once and you get everything, or do you buy it in packs?
Game Pass.
It was originally sold in components, wasn't it?
I remember it was sold in components.
Something like that.
It was all on one disc, and then like ODST and Reach were added later on. So
that's
like,
right.
Like, you get those. You have to download those separately, basically. So.
Right. So inherently, the approach for doing something like that, and Halo 5 to an extent too, right? I feel like the design philosophies have to be treated a little bit differently, because you're trying to figure out how to get people to spend money on the skins and the guns and the skins guns and the cat ears, and I don't know. I didn't really get into the monetization model of Halo all that much. But yeah, it feels like if you this is where the problem stems, right? With everyone with 343 and what they're doing is that if they're not creating enough of a content ingestion in a free product, then what is the reason as to why people would keep playing? Whether it's gameplay modes, empty promises, or even skins, right? It feels like when Overwatch first came out, all of us were celebrating all the time because they were just new skins, new modes, holiday season. Someone could be Santa Claus. That's so funny. Like, how does Halo do that? How does Halo, can you play as Ariana Grande in Halo? No, but like, what? That's a new content thing. That's
Why not, damn it?
God.
Yeah. Well,
hashtag
we're all content creators, and like to a much smaller scale. But then when you create content, like Ralph, when you do your YouTube videos, like you have a content calendar. You know what's going to come up next, right? Like we plan to talk about this now. It's just weird that they don't have a plan to like have more content, Like, it's not like Fortnite just pulled Goku out of their ass like that week, Like they were planning months ahead to get Goku, And it's like there's no plan. There doesn't seem to be a plan like that at 343 at all. They just be like, okay, well now we're done with the season. Okay, let's work on the next map. It's like why are you just doing that now?
Like Overwatch 2, when they were talking about their live service model, they were like, seasons are going to be, it's between 8 to 16 weeks. I forget which one it is, but it's like, here's how long the seasons will be. There'll be a new hero every X amount of seasons. There will be a new map here. There'll be, and then single player stuff is going to be in the next one. And it's like, okay, shit. Like, I remember hearing that and I was like, okay, I feel more at ease knowing that you have a plan. Halo Infinite, it felt like we were all just so excited to see another Halo and for it to be good that everyone kind of didn't necessarily think about the infinite part of it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't a big selling point, or rather like a tarnishment about Halo Infinite on launch, was it the campaign wasn't in the game? Or am I making that up? Didn't they have to like delay release the campaign a couple of weeks?
They released the multiplayer first. It was that shot of confidence releasing multiplayer earlier than the campaign was supposed to that gave a lot of people, including myself, like a lot of hope. Where it's like, okay, well, look, sounds like they got things right. Sounds like they're gonna get it, and we're all still waiting.
Yeah, that's it. To have released that multiplayer early really says, hey, we've got everything really under control on the multiplayer side. And it's like, cool. And they certainly, it felt like they did, but we just had no idea how much they in fact did not have it under control when it comes to supporting this game in the longer term. But also, it must be said, the missing features on the multiplayer side and core playlists and those and progression, the store, the whole free-to-play discussion is another thing which we won't even touch now. But
the theater doesn't even work. The custom games browser doesn't work. I mean, there are actual features in the game that just don't work, period. You know? So there are tabs in there that are pointless. And they're taking up entire like UI space for no reason because they just don't work. And they're going to work in March.
I apologize. I missed Gene's rant then because my headset is just turned off all of a sudden. So but it looked very impassioned. I could see him really talking. You know what I mean?
Was right.
It was great. It was great.
Gene's right.
He's right.
I was just saying, Ralph, that theater mode doesn't work. Custom games browser doesn't work. So there are entire tabs in the game, in the game's UI that just doesn't work at all. Like there are features in the game that are missing that are supposed to be in the game.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
And I think that to kind of send this conversation to an end, I think knowing that, you know, the only peak concurrent viewers on the Steam, according to Steam charts, is 5,000K concurrence versus launch of 250K on a live service. They just kind of points out.
And Apex right now is averaging about 450,000. Destiny is about 150,000. I mean, that's crazy. Halo is not Halo. I mean, Splitgate is averaging about 1,500 right now. So Splitgate is about a third as popular as Halo Infinite.
Didn't they just say that they were stopping Splitgate?
Yeah, they're stopping development.
Yeah,
on
a game
that's
going to die.
And obviously, we can't ignore the Xbox audience. We can't ignore the Game Pass audience.
True.
Of course,
True.
absolutely,
of course.
sure. Those warp the numbers. But the Steam numbers are going to be roughly indicative of overall popularity because Apex is also available on Xbox. It's free to play there as well, and it's still got that's also available on the Origin launcher, and it was well before it was available on Steam.
Yeah.
So those arguments, you pick them apart, and it just is a real bummer. Hopefully Xbox can make some big plays here and get Halo back to where it needs to be because I love Halo. I think it's sad to say, but it has untapped potential at this point, which is not something you'd ever want to say about a Halo title. But anyway.
Yeah,
hey, listen, we should probably wrap that. Sorry, Gene.
I'll be moving my shooter engagement to Splatoon 3,
Right.
Which is going to have the same amount of maps as Halo Infinite, which is going to have like all these customizations with no microtransactions at launch, and it will have a full single player campaign.
And with that note, Gene single-handedly made us talk about Nintendo for a little bit today. So there we go.
Oh, God, what the hell?
There we go. We did it. We showed it out, baby.
Would happily have talked about it if Nintendo would send us the game so we could review it. That'd be nice.
That would be sweet.
But they don't send it out to YouTubers. You didn't get it either?
Well, the Washington Post got it. I just didn't get it. So.
Oh, okay. Right. Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So with that, we should probably segue into another conversation now. Free of live service and the like is indie label Devolver Digital. They're not really about all that stuff. They're just about making cool-ass or publishing cool-ass games for like $20 a pop that are always surprisingly good. And we have one of the co-founders here today. His name's Graeme Struthers. When I say today, he's kind of not here. He's actually in Long Beach, California. This was funny. We pre-recorded
He's in my
this.
city.
And he's like sitting there smoking a cigarette on the beach. He's like having a beer while he's talking to us.
It was great.
He's got the dog running around. I mean, that's the way to do an interview for a podcast. He's really crushing it. So we're going to cut over to that now. This is Graeme Struthers, co-founder of Devolver Digital. All right, here we go. Very excited about this one. We are joined today by Graeme Struthers of Devolver Digital, one of the founders, if I'm not mistaken, or within that founding era, startup phase. We'll clarify that, I guess. Graeme is joining us from California right now. You look very relaxed, can I say, in that locale, and you're like very chilled out.
Well, if you can't be chilled out here, I guess, where could you be? So, yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you joining. Obviously, Graeme was there at the very beginning of Devolver, and it's an interesting story because Devolver right now is easily the #1 indie label on the planet, and it's just consistently banging out bangers. I don't think that's how you should say it, but it's a thing. The strike rate for this publisher is pretty crazy, I think. There's a pretty remarkable ability to pick winners. I don't know of any publisher that has the same success rate that Devolver has displayed over the last little while. So really interested to hear about where that all began, that journey, some of the major beats like your Hotline Miamis and your Fall Guys and what that was like, and also just kind of get your view on the indie scene because obviously it's rapidly changing and you're at the center of all that. So for the benefit of those that don't quite know you very well, would you mind sort of introducing yourself and your history with Devolver, etc., the top line stuff?
So, well, thanks for all of that. I started out in video games as a retail buyer, buying video games for a big store chain in the UK, and in those days it was very much Mega Drive or the Genesis for those from America. Super Nintendo and Game Boy were the three formats that kind of dominated life in those days. I did that for 2 years, and that allowed me to meet pretty much everybody in the video games industry in the UK, and knew that I wanted to get on the other side, onto the publishing side. So managed to get a job at Virgin Interactive, where I was there for 4 years, and that was, the formative part of my time, because Virgin, as it was in those days, a lot of companies didn't have their own publishing set up in Europe, so we represented people like Capcom. LucasArts was another big part of our life, as well as the content that Virgin itself was producing. And so in those 4 years, it was pretty varied, but I got to work in the UK and then took a role at Virgin where I was sort of managing all the international businesses. So that was a quick, rapid kind of like learning curve, working in France, Germany, the Nordics, and then later on into Eastern Europe and Russia. So yeah, that was Virgin. Then ultimately worked for a part of Virgin, which was Westwood Studios. You know them from Command and Conquer.
Sure.
They got bought out by Electronic Arts. Virgin, the owners of Virgin decided to exit the games industry. So it was a bit of a fire sale. And I ended up at Electronic Arts for around about a year. That was just to finish Tiberian Sun. Once that was done, I moved on and had a couple of other roles in smaller companies, then ended up at Take-Two, which had acquired Gathering of Developers. And that's where I met Harry Miller and Mike Wilson, who were the founders of Gathering. And that idea that they'd had from the point of view of developers joining together to do their own publishing didn't quite work. But the idea was one that they wanted to revisit. And so that led us, after a few hop, skips and a jump, to setting up Devolver. I think that was 2008 when we started Devolver. So that's your kind of like, short history or condensed version of a long history, I should say. And that's where we, and that's, the thing that intrigued me about Harry particularly was he had this really strong view that developers were always being screwed. Somewhere in the process they were being screwed. And the only way to not be screwed was to do everything yourself. And that happened to coincide with the emergence of Steam, which also was transformative, because it allowed small companies to have a chance. So that's how we got to Devolver, or how I got to Devolver.
Yeah. So then when you say that Gathering, because I remember Gathering Developers, and as I understand, you sort of talked about the idea that it was founded to make sure that developers got a better deal. But you said that didn't really work. Why didn't it work? Like, what was the major hurdle there?
I mean, it's several things. One, if you make video games for a living, you pretty much realize quite quickly that any game that you work on or any game that you sign will generally end up costing more than anyone thought. And that's not because of anything, any kind of negligence. It's just that games are quite complex things to pull off. So Gathering had raised enough money to get itself up and running, but in those days, the additional cost you always faced was physical goods. To then go and manufacture your games, and it was something of I suppose I don't want to say it was a bit of a cartel. You had to go through distribution companies to get to retail, So so if you imagine that you're fronting all the money, distribution takes a chunk, retail takes a chunk, and the way that you were paid in those days was that you were pretty much waiting around about 4 months for any kind of money to come back across the table. So cash flow was horrible. The margins that you could ever get anyway, even when you were successful, were pretty low. So it didn't take a great deal to knock you off balance. So games running later than you anticipated, it just ended up kind of breaking us, or breaking the original Gathering. The Take-Two, and when they took over, or they acquired Gathering, like a lot of big companies, when that happened, the initial enthusiasm soon petered out. So when I got involved, it was still a retail-based business, and the sales folks who were working across the world were only really interested in Grand Theft Auto, and it makes sense, right? I mean, it's not that's not firing any shots at folks. It's just if you're going into retail to sell something called Grand Theft Auto 3, you've got a lot of excited people. If you're trying to sell, I don't know, Mafia as it was then, or Hidden and Dangerous, it's not such a easy job, and people tend to do the easy bit.
Sure.
So that was, but the premise of Gathering was, how do you get to a situation where the developer makes the majority of the money in the transaction? How do you get to that point? And also the other thing which Harry was very, very passionate about was developers keeping ownership of IP. Because again, if you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, when you signed your game to a publisher, they took ownership of IP. And if they didn't do that, they generally nailed you into sequel rights, which is effectively the same thing. So it was a very unfair relationship. But when you're a developer, you always need funding. So the transformative part of Steam was that firstly you had this business where you didn't need all these sales folks, you didn't need all this other stuff. You just needed to focus on making your game. And also the 70-30 split. I mean, I think today people don't really realize how transformative that was. I think people got used to that. But if you go back to the early 2000s, you'd be lucky if you're a developer to make around about 18 to 20%.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
And obviously that the super successful developers would have had better deals, but by and large, that's where you were. Also, again, back to what I said earlier about cash flow. I mean, when Steam, it was 70-30, but you got paid every month. I mean, this was unheard of. That business model transformed things because, again, it's the boring part of the industry of running a business, but cash flow is pivotal. So, yeah, that enabled I think that was when the Gathering of Developers idea finally found a business model that could sustain it. By that point, it was called Devolver.
Right. Okay. So those same values and aspirations were carried over wholesale into Devolver at its founding?
Yeah. So our idea was, and I've got to give all the credit to Harry because he's the one that had that central plank, if you will, was that the developer should make the most money. So, and they should retain ownership of IP, and they shouldn't be tied into sequels. So we still have that. There's no reason to change it because it's really successful. And I was explaining it earlier today that when we were jumping to the kind of like the company going public, it could be perceived as a risk that you don't have those rights. Like, what's to stop someone else coming in and taking over? Our answer to that was, well, we're now in year 12, and the developers we work with today are ones we've been working with for many, many years in most cases. And our perception of ourselves was, if we do our job really well, and they see that we do our job really well, and they're super happy with how we do things, we continue forwards. If we screw up, then it's a different story, right?
Sure, of course. Yeah, right. So those early years were quite focused on Serious Sam from memory. That was like the bedrock foundation of Devolver. Is that how did that all happen? And then how did that get the company through that opening window?
So Crow Team go way back with Harry. They were one of the first teams that Gathering of Developers actually signed. And that relationship had sustained, there was a certain period where Gathering had folded and Crow Team were within the Take-Two world, but the key thing was they owned their IP. So when Take-Two, moved in a different direction, Crow Team were free and clear to move on as well. As I say, we kept in touch, and they deserve all the credit for trusting us because at the time we started up, it was Nigel and myself with laptops, and nothing else really. But the trust they had in Harry was there, and it was thanks to them giving us the opportunity that gave us the initial kind of impetus and then momentum. And again, Serious Sam was a relatively well-known and trusted IP. So yeah, that's I think that's in a way that's the payback that Harry earned us through his original business idea. So yeah, that's where we started out.
Sure. And as I understand, it was kind of like it went pretty well for a while, but then all of a sudden Hotline Miami came along and kind of put things into another gear. Is that correct to say that?
I guess externally, I'm sure that makes a lot of sense. The thing with Serious Sam was that Serious Sam 3 was the game that the Crow Team were working on, but that was always going to take, from the point we started with them, that was going to take 2 to 3 years. They got back the rights to the original first and second encounter, did HD versions, and that was the first games that we put up on Steam. But as Sam, took longer than anticipated, Nigel, one of the other co-founders, he had this idea of what if we went to some of these new indie developers that we're seeing and offered them, basically said, would any of you like to make a Serious Sam game? I mean, that's a sidebar that would take us hours to go through all of that, but Vlambeer were one of the teams that said yes, and they thought they were, I suppose they thought they didn't take us very seriously, so they sent through a game idea for Serious Sam with the Serious Sam IP, which they thought we would think was ridiculous, and therefore we would naturally say, well, that's ridiculous. But Nigel's like, that's awesome.
So which game was that? Which what did they send through? What was it?
Well, basically, Sam's first person shooter. And obviously, none of these devs were ever going to be making a first-person shooter. So first of all, for each dev, it was a disconnect. Why would you want us to even work on this IP? And I mean, they just sent through a very Vlambeer kind of like set of ideas, which they just assumed that we would reject. I mean, the ideas weren't crazy. It was just they just assumed that we would say no, yeah. And they were surprised when we said yes. In fact, years later, Rami was like, well, "We felt that were you just calling our bluff," kind of thing. And we were like, "No, we genuinely thought it was a good idea." And we already knew them through Ridiculous Fishing. We'd seen that game blow up, and that led us to working with Vlambeer. But during that time, JW and Rami said, "Oh, we've got some friends up in Gothenburg who've got an idea for a game that they're thinking maybe they should talk to a publisher. Would you be interested?" And that was, at that time, it was called Cocaine Cowboys. And by complete...
That's sick. Should have been called that. God damn it. Why did you drop that?
Well, we didn't. Actually, that's another sort of sidebar, because initially Cocaine Cowboys and Rick, Mike and Harry thought that name was awesome. Nigel and myself thought the game was really amazing. And when they wanted to change it to Hotline Miami, I remember Rick in particular being like, "Oh, well, that's bullshit." But I think the reason they had to change it, there was a movie, a documentary had come out.
I just googled that then. I'm like, it's a document. Okay, right, that makes sense.
So that was that. But it was actually and it turned out, and I didn't know that at the time, is that Jonathan Sonnerson, who's one of the two guys who made Hotline, he was doing at that time a lot of games under his. Sorry, dog's going crazy here. He was doing a lot of games under his name, the girl Cactus, and Nigel had been playing a lot of his stuff. It was all freeware. So when we got the introduction, it was very natural, you know, that kind of like step from working with Lambier to meeting Denison. And yeah, I mean, I remember Nigel sending me the build, and I should preface this by saying I'm terrible at twitchy games. But it was one of those things where, you know, at that time I was doing contract work, because again, Devolver, we didn't have any money, so Nigel was working in an ad agency in Dallas, I was doing contract work in London, and I was just sitting on a really crappy laptop and got this build and headphones on, and as soon as I mean, it's one of those moments, as soon as you start playing, even though visually it was very different from how it ended up, but they already had some of the music in there, and it, you know, my hot take was it was like a rhythm action game. You know, the music was just so pivotal to how it felt. So yeah, I mean, obviously we went ahead with it, and not to say that the rest is history, but it was, you kind of know when you've got something that is special.
Sure.
And then I think over the course of the next 7 or 8 months, we took it to a show in London. Sorry, it was in Brighton, called Resd. And I remember Tom Bramble, who at that time was the editor of Eurogamer. We were like, we want to go to the pub. It's 7 o'clock in the evening. Can you just let us go? We can't, you know. He was bringing people over to play the game, and then we later on, you know, I think Nigel took it to a PAX and had a very similar kind of, you know, reaction. So by the time the game was heading to launch, there was already a huge amount of buzz around it. So yeah, you know,
that's it.
Yeah, I can't remember what show I was at, if it was an E3 or a Eurogamer Expo, but like it was the game that everyone was like, oh my god, have you played Hotline Miami? And it was only on, I think, maybe 1 or 2 demo booths. I remember hunting it down at the end of the show, and I was like, oh shit, I fucked up by not playing this sooner.
Yeah, there was 2 games I remember, because at the time we had Hotline and Mike Bissell was out there with Thomas was alone.
Sure.
I mean, there was other games, but at one event, Mike's was adjacent to us, and both games were getting this incredibly strong reaction. And again, there was a thing that, you know, I was thinking about this recently, this was also the exact same period where Sony were struggling with the end of PlayStation 3. There was a sense that Sony had lost their way. Microsoft had yet to bring the 360 out, and there was this almost like a pause. So Microsoft were heading towards their new, it was that Gen 7 or Gen 8?
Xbox One.
Xbox One. And there was a bit of a hiatus. You know, all the big AAA publishers were noodling on which direction they would go in. And it felt like there was this almost like a year where the indie games got so much oxygen from media, because there wasn't that much else.
No. And I guess around then there would have been like Summer of Arcade on Xbox as well. I remember being huge,
That's
like kind
right.
of around that sort of time. And
yeah, right. Was that like the first? I'm trying to remember. Was that the first really big indie game? Like, was that the first one that everyone talked about?
A lot of people point to Braid as the one.
Braid,
and Super Meat Boy were kind of the two.
Yeah, true.
When was Limbo as well?
Limbo is
Limbo too.
Certainly, Braid had been out for a while. Super Meat Boy as well. I just remember it from I guess from my memories are really based on being at events. And again, it was, these small events. And then later on at PAX Indie Mega Booth, where you'd be surrounded by small companies or small, standalone devs. And there's just always something. It was almost like you could watch the crowd morphing around games. There's a real energy. And, I think most of us would also say at that time, you were just excited for anyone being successful, because each game that came out and was successful would validate the space. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. So then obviously
that one of the first that was like coming from 2-man team or something like that, though. Like that was, I think that part of it was pretty unique. Also, the soundtrack was amazing.
Soundtrack to this day, I mean, still, I can't, to this day, unparalleled, really. Like there's just nothing that's been quite like that. Amazing. Yeah. So obviously that was a big sort of like shot in the arm in terms of validating that strategy, going the indie label path. And it looks like that you sort of leveraged that for the next few years, because after that you had like Hatterful Boyfriend and Enter the Gungeon and Talos Principle, Shadow Warrior, My Friend Pedro. I mean, I'm sort of condensing 6 years here into like a few bullet points. But I think that at that point, Devolver started to establish itself as a label that really knew how to pick winners. It really knew what the secret sauce was that, made a game great and was able to back those products. Do you think how does that work for you guys? Like, what is that process where you're able to look at a game and be like, hey, this is it, man. We're gonna put some dollars behind this. How does that actually work mechanically?
So, if you go back to that period, around Hotline, and then what comes next was, like I was just saying earlier, there was a real enthusiasm and energy around the indie scene, and we were fortunate that we were there at that juncture. But what we then found was that these developers we were working with would validate another developer and say, guys, you need to check out this team. So a lot of the things that came after that was a combination of either the developers introducing others and Nigel. I mean, Nigel is, I still to this day don't know how he finds the time to continually look at what's happening, follow threads that lead to developers. And I think sometimes you can overthink these things, but I think a lot of the games that we've released in that period would have been games that would have sat really well on Super Nintendo. They had the same kind of simple gameplay mechanics. And Andrew, who was the first person that joined Devolver from after the founders, Andrew would always talk about, you can just feel it. You can just pick up whether it's keyboard or mouse or the controller, and you just know there's a core gameplay loop that you can imagine will serve that game well, will keep you engaged. So I mean, Nigel deserves a huge amount of credit for that direction. And I think 14-year-old Nigel was a Nintendo addict, and I think that you can, if you think of it from that perspective, you can see that thread through a lot of the games that we've been involved in. And as I say, the other thing about the Devolver as it's grown is the enthusiasm for games is just, it's just incredible. It's generationally, we've got a group of people at Devolver. This is their life. It's
sure.
Yeah. So,
yeah, right. So is Nigel sort of like the main game scout that is out there, just like, or was he then and it's different now? Like how that process?
Yeah, I guess I would probably say that we would never think of it from the point of view of like scouting in that sense. Those developers that we met around 2012, 13, 14, like Free Lives, have just been prodigious in producing, the most diverse portfolio of games. When we started working with Broforce, that led to Genital Jousting, led to Cricket Through the Ages, led to Gorn. Angerfoot is in the future, Terra Nil. I mean, working with them is, I think we can honestly say we never know what's coming next.
Sure.
But I think that period was when, teams, as I said, were introduced to us through people like Denison and Flambeer. And then, of course, going to these events, you could walk around the Indie Mega booth and meet these teams in person. And I think in that sense, we're not very different from being a journalist. You're interested in what's going on. You're actually like hearing about something and being able to go and talk to that developer in person and get a sense of what they're trying to do. I think that period of those 4 years, that's how our business probably got catapulted forwards.
Sure.
But I don't think we've never set out to go find games. That probably sounds a little bit strange, but we've never been, we've got to go and find 3 games for 2022 or 2023. It's been very organic, which is a nightmare from a business perspective.
Sure. And I mean, as the company, that success came through, did the company sort of change internally? Like, because you're still pretty lean. I think you're only 20 people right now, right?
Oh God, you're well out of date.
Oh, right. Okay. How many are you now?
So I think the actual Devolver piece, I think is now 50 people.
Okay, right. That's still really small though.
Well, I'm still struggling with all the names. That's a change. Pre Fall Guys, I think we were around about 20 people. But when Fall Guys hit us, we literally had to fast, hire because we had not been prepared for that to blow up the way it did. So that meant we had to bring in more producers, add some support around marketing, and that I think that took us up to probably around about 30 people, which I was terrified of. I think we all were. And yeah, we're now I think 50 people in the Devolver company.
Sure. Yeah, right. Yeah, cool. And it was around this time that you started doing the E3 showcases. That was how did they get their start? And I think Nina Struthers, right? I think that's her surname.
Yes. Yes.
Any coincidence
there? We had, and again, you'll hear the name Nigel recurring. As Steam had been transformative in the sense of changing how we could sell our games, things like Twitch were also huge sea change. And going back to the early days of Twitch and obviously YouTube as well, we were, I think maybe we weren't the first, but we did say, look, you can monetize our games. It sounds bizarre now because at a certain point, people who were trying to stream games were having takedowns they should all the time. And we were always saying, please stream our games, please go and play our games. And so the relationship with Twitch at that point, I think was very solid for us because we were proactive with that. And Nigel had this idea to do this fake press conference. And I remember him telling me about it, and I was like, I have no fucking clue what you're talking about. And at the time, I do remember him saying, I'm going to name all the presenters after our kids.
Wait, they're named. Okay, that's awesome. That's great.
So all the presenters were named after our kids. And I think when they did the very first one, Nigel's perspective was that there's a very good chance no one's going to watch this. It's a very good chance this is just going to be like an empty room. So there was no plans. I don't think he at that point had any idea this would take off. And I remember that when I saw the first E3 press conference the same way everyone else did. I didn't see it before it went live. And I was like, I loved it, but I was like, I had no clue that was what it was going to be. And of course, the actress who plays Nina, Marina Zook, just was astonishing. And like, I don't know, 24 hours after that thing went live, my daughter, Nina Struthers, was like, well, that's my social media profile busted. And she also had a few, of the nastier parts of the internet reaching out to her.
Sure.
Ugh.
That sucks.
Yes. Lucy just made the appropriate noise there.
Yeah. It's the only noise you've really got.
It blew up. And that then, I think, effectively gave Nigel a blank check to continue on that path. And again, to this day, I the first time I didn't see it because I wasn't really paying attention until it came out. Since then, I've followed the same. I don't watch them until they go live. So
yeah,
and there was pre-COVID. We were at E3, and they invited lots of people to come and watch it with us, and I ended up sitting next to two people from Nintendo who we deal with, and they're lovely. But that's when we really sort of took my uncle from Nintendo and the Nintendo Direct thing and used it, and I could feel it. Like it just like, and that's going like.
Nintendo as a company seemed like then they wouldn't really take a joke well. They just get that vibe where
you could just tell the notebook is coming out.
That's right.
I mean, the folks we deal with are just exactly the same as us. I mean, they're great, but at the time, I kind of would have preferred not to be sitting next to them.
No,
sure.
But I love them. I have no clue what he's going to do next.
And you guys also would attend E3, but you do it across the street in a car park with the Devolver balloon.
Always the best place to be at E3.
That was always the coolest place to be. It always had the best food, nice vibes. It was always a bit hot, but it was a great little setup.
I think people skip past this part. Air conditioned and clean toilets.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes.
Really good food. Really good food.
What are you? How are you feeling about E3 not being or potentially coming back, and what physical events, and how what's your vibe on E3 next year?
Honestly, I genuinely hope it's coming back. I hope it's going to be great. We plan to be there. We plan to be back in our car park. And again, before we came on air, events have been critical to us. This is where we've been able to live off the industry, bringing people together. Mm-hmm. Whether that's developers, the first parties, but specifically, I think it's allowed us to meet the media in all of its forms. And when you are a small company, those events are really, really important. And E3 has always been like prior to COVID was a big part of our year. So we want to get back to that. But the challenge that any event faces is being relevant to media as well as exhibitors. I mean, the bigger companies seem set on their own path, doing their own things, which is understandable because they can attract all that attention doing things themselves. But I think it's important that these events are sustained, and that's why, you mentioned again, PAX Australia, it can be seen as a small event, and therefore you can question it. You could say, oh well, it's a very expensive place to get to and all that kind of stuff. But for Devolver, PAX Australia has led us to 3 or 4 games that have been hugely successful, coming from Australian devs. We would never have met them without that event, or we wouldn't have met them in person without that event. So I think events are really, really important in the general sense for our industry. That I think they're very important.
Yeah, right. Yeah, cool.
And we will have air-conditioned toilets and good
beautiful
food, I promise.
Well, we'll be there then. That's it.
Really appreciate it. Probably the highlight of the show is that for sure every year.
I think obviously Hotline Miami was a real sort of boost and a real milestone for the thing, but the next really gigantic one was surely Fall Guys. Tell us the story about how that was discovered and how it was brought to market and what the aftermath was like when it went absolutely crazy.
Well, we met Mediatonic. Actually, it was before Hatful Boyfriend. They had a game called Foul Play. And they'd done a deal for the Xbox version, but they hadn't got anyone for the game being released on Steam. So that's where we first met, and at that point, Mediatonic, I don't know if they were 30-person or 20-person company. They were pretty small, and they're in London, and so there was myself and Andrew also being in London. We met and started hanging out with some of the Mediatonic folks. That led us to Hatful Boyfriend. Led to Nigel setting up a Tinder profile for a pigeon.
I remember that.
Yeah. And again, they were part of our for about a year, maybe a bit longer. We were out on the road with them. So they were coming to PAX, they were coming to Gamescom, and of course they met the guys from Roll 7, Denton, Free Lives, and of course developers always have way more in common with each other than they have with publishers, right? So they formed friendships with Dennis and Rasmus and Ruan, and so I guess it felt like they were at that point. We all felt like we were really, really connected. They were growing, their studio. They were doing a lot of work for hire, big projects. But they always had part of their studio would game jam and riff on ideas. And because by that point, we had a social relationship, so I'd be hanging out with Helen and Jeff, going for drinks. And they talked about this game, and I would always tease them, saying like, you've got to pitch it to us. We helped you out when you were just, the plucky little developer. And
it's called a guilt trip, I believe. I think that's a guilt trip is a technical term, right?
It's a valid technique.
Well, we would tease each other, and when they were doing events, and they were they're always really busy, because when you do work for hire, you're always looking for the next gig. It's a very pressurized existence, and they would come and do timeouts on our booth at E3, in the parking lot at E3, or maybe at Gamescom. And I guess, it wasn't like anyone ever pitched us or we pitched them. It was more like it was a conversation that just went on for a number of months. And, I think they had every right to be skeptical of Devolver being able to take on such a project, in the same way that I could have been skeptical of them ever making such a game. That's a big sea change. But again, when we did get to see it, I think everyone who saw Fall Guys for the first time had a similar reaction. It's got that, I don't know, it just makes you want to know more. It makes you smile. So I think, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, but yet I am, I think they felt, well, if we go with Devolver, we keep our IP. That worked out really well, by the way.
I'll say.
A little too well, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
They'll retain, they won't have anyone meddling with the creative aspect of it. So they again, there was a lot of trust from them to sign with us. Arguably, from our perspective, there was a lot of trust as well, because we hadn't seen them take on such a project. But yeah, that was, I think, I'm sure they would say the same. It was like those 2 years of hanging out with each other, doing events, formed a lot of strong bonds, and yeah, worked out.
Are you disappointed then to have seen it make the jump over to the Epic Games Store, become an exclusive in that way?
God, it's like, so I mean, if you go into the build up to launch and everything, all that energy, it was also COVID had hit. So the studio had to move from working in offices to working remotely. Huge credit to them for still being able to produce the game. our guys who were working on the live ops side of it, it was really, really intense, and that's before the game was a success. And in the build up to launch, the momentum was just crazy. And then I don't know if any of you guys ski or do anything where you have these moments where you suddenly think, I could die. There was a definite sense of like, oh my God, this could wipe us out. We might not cope with what's coming. And then the game went live and it was even worse than we thought, as in it was more successful than we'd ever imagined. And I think not just the Mediatonic crew, because for them it was like being hit with a whirlwind. We were all working like 7 days a week, and it's 24 hours. So it was almost like a relay team, whether it was marketing or live ops or scaling in servers. It was brilliant and awful at the same time.
Sure.
And we didn't get to celebrate. We never got the chance to get together. Normally, you at least get that where you all get together. You get that, look at each other and go like, holy fuck, and you celebrate. Well, we never got that. Mediatonic never got that, and I still feel for them as a studio. They never got to all get together and just have that what have we just done moment. And then of course, what comes next is that the bigger fish in the industry, they see something that they want. And our relationship with Mediatonic, I mentioned earlier in our call, in our chat, we don't own their IP, that's theirs. And we had a very open relationship, and when they were being approached, because we were very clear with people who approached us, we do not own this developer, we don't own this IP. So that led to people talking with them. And at some point, you've got a studio, you've got a lot of people. They could see in front of them that to run Fall Guys would need them to scale up massively. And I think, what Epic represented was there's a lot of infrastructure there, there's a lot of knowledge. It's a safe haven. And, we stood back and as well, rightly so. And they did their deal with Epic, and it was inevitable then that Epic would want us out of the equation, and then that's just down to negotiation.
Sure.
So, but in retrospect, I think it was the best outcome for us and for Mediatonic. I don't think Devolver would have been able to. We'd have had to scale up to such a degree that I think we would have lost the Devolver thing in that process. But that's a retrospective view. At the time, it was like, we can do this.
And is that scaling up mainly on the technical side in terms of the live ops, just keeping the game running at the back end, or is that also the marketing and PR? Like, what is that exactly? That scale up?
It's all consuming. And it takes over. There's no two ways about it. You can't. I mean, going back to that time, it's when something becomes 7 days a week, then you're losing your space for everything else. Sure. And we've always prided ourselves that we always feel that any game we sign has to get all of our attention. We can't be in a situation where one thing takes everybody off. It would be really unfair on those developers if we suddenly, lost our way. And I think at that time Devolver was 18, 20 people. We did fast hire a few people, but even so, it would have. Look, I mean, as I say, this is retrospective looking back, but I think if I was a developer at the time with Devolver, I'd be thinking, well, they're so busy with Fall Guys, are they really going to be able to give me the time and attention that I'd hoped for? So I'm glad it happened. It was awesome. It was great to be involved in the launch. It was crazy. It was mental. You know, and it was a bit like, I don't know, like a kind of a disaster movie with a good ending, but there's things that happen along the way where, you know, like we have to shut the game down because people have hacked it, and they're starting to put things into the game which are politically, you know, difficult to deal with. So we have to close it down and fix that, and that's at 3 a.m. Well, my 3 a.m, it might have been, I don't know, 8. It was just all that kind of stuff was happening, and it was.
And was there anyone on the team that predicted that level of success? Was there someone sitting at the back kind of just going like, trust me, this is going to be big? Or was it that much of a surprise to everyone?
Well, 3 or 4 months before launch, you have to do this stuff where you're looking at the cost of server infrastructure, running the game, customer service, having all those agents available. And so you scale it to the point of like, well, what if we launch this game and it doesn't really do very well, but we still have to provide all the services? What's the point where the blue turns to red? Then we had another forecast, which was we launched this game and it does okay. It does okay in the sense that we're scaling, running all those services, and the blue stays blue, but it's close to red. And then we had another forecast, which was called Graeme's Ridiculous Forecast, where it was, you know, it launches and it takes off. And one of the guy that was running all the back end for us, his name's John Barkey. He's our CTO. And it was John and myself who were working together on these forecasts, because John had to provide all the back end costs and all the things at scale. And, you know, when we would look at this forecast every day and update it, this is pre-launch, and you come back to looking at the forecast that's the one that says, you know, it's going to fail, you know, and John was confident that the game would be strong enough. John was confident that we would be able to launch this game well. He was also super confident that what Nigel had in line for all the marketing would help find an audience. But I was the one who kept on going, yeah, but John, what if? And the day the game launched, it went through my most preposterous numbers. And so I guess that answers your question, is that,
yeah,
you know, we didn't have a fucking clue.
Sure. Yeah, right.
Well,
but we were really confident that we had something that could do well. But
I think something that Fall Guys did super well was just introduce so many IPs to people who didn't know out beyond Fall Guys, right? I think, you know, I'm a huge Enter the Gungeon fan. Thousands of hours spent playing Enter the Gungeon. But the minute I saw that I could dress up as the Bullet from Enter the Gungeon, I grinded for several hours so I could get that thing. So I think that's something that Fall Guys, from the very beginning, you guys were on top of, which was, hey, bringing other IPs to kind of the costume aesthetic.
A lot of that credit goes to Jeff and Joe at Mediatonic, and you know, they always had that plan, and we went out and approached, you know, a lot of other games companies at the time, and it was, I mean, people's view of what an IP is worth varies hugely, but in the indie space, people were just delighted to have the chance to see their character go in. So you mentioned Gungeon, the Hotline folk. I mean, they were all just happy for that to happen. I think now it's a business, you know, like that's now, you know, much more transactional.
Oh yeah.
But you know, and it was great. It was. I mean, that's the thing. When you're inside a game prior to launch and you start to see these characters, you know, the high res stuff comes through, you're like, this just looks amazing. And who would have thought the Bulletkin would be the most obvious? And I think I'm right in saying, but I mean, I don't have insight to the numbers these days, but Gato Roboto was also hugely successful in Fall Guys. I'm sure most people wouldn't have heard of the game, but they loved the costume.
Sure.
Well, who discovered Nier Automata through Fall Guys?
They're in for a big genre / tone jump with that one. It'll be a wild ride.
It's like, oh, I love Fall Guys. I should play this game near.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What a cute character.
Mommy, can you buy it for me? Tell me that obviously Fall Guys was a huge out of the box success. Were there any that you passed on, the label passed on, that went on to be a massive success? And you're like, damn, we really should have got that one.
There's a few war stories like that, but in most cases, it was at the time that the game was pitched to us. We didn't have the financial means. We didn't have the capability to take them on. And we've always been very discreet about that because we never want another publisher to think, oh, we were second choice, or Devolver just said no to it. But there's been a few that we've looked at and agonized over, and we just couldn't. And Rick, who ran Devolver's finances, would always say to us that he would never leverage future success of a game to let us fund a game now. So if we didn't have the cash, and I couldn't say, well, Rick, but this game we're about to launch will do really well, then we'll have the cash. He's like, no, we have to know that it has to be in the bank now. And he also had this ethic, which was that any game we signed, he would essentially take the entirety of that budget out of our cash flow. So even if the other games we launched in the interim didn't succeed, we'd still have that money. So he stopped Nigel and myself signing stuff.
Right.
For very good reasons.
Sure.
There's a few that every now and then I look at Steam and I'm like, oh fuck, we should have signed that.
Can't give us one? You can't give us just one? Come on.
No, because we never want to be those guys that are acting like we knew something.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But believe me, there's been a few. There's been a few. Yeah,
that's cool.
I think the big thing that's happening these days, obviously, is subscription services. They are taking over. You've had Game Pass, and you've got your PS Extra now, and all sorts of stuff. I'm probably forgetting like 8 other services. What's your overall view of how this is affecting the industry right now? Are you seeing it overall as a net positive? And certainly on the indie side, do you think this is a good deal for the indie space, or is it a huge red flag?
I mean, to start with the negative, because I think it's important to explore that, is that the subscription model in the world of film and in the world of music is not delivering for artists. So, music, Spotify, we're all very aware that, the business model there is not working for the creator. I think in film, the all-you-can-eat model has done significant harm to the independent film development side. So that's things that we should be concerned about. We should think about. And I feel comfortable saying this, but whenever we speak to first parties, our concern is that your stores naturally are pushing the really successful things to the top. You're currently more toward live services games than you are to the small form indie games. And clearly they would argue, well, this is a commercial reality. This is what people do. The majority of people who play video games are playing those games. So, and I get that, in the same way that in the film world, most people are going to go and see a Top Gun movie than see Nomadland, So there's always this kind of like push and pull between being part of subscription services and being financially well rewarded for that, but being concerned about over time, does it create the same ecosystems that we've seen take hold in film and music? I would say our advantage, however, and I think this is where Sony and Microsoft do deserve credit, is they've given commercially reasonable terms, whereas the film and music industry do not. Right, so we've got much more favourable terms compared to if you were a musician or a filmmaker. I also get the impression that Sony and Microsoft as businesses are still run by game-centric people.
Mm.
And they still get as excited about Cult of the Lamb as they do about, Grand Theft Auto 16. So I think as long as we have, game-centric people running these services, I think then we're in safer hands.
Mm.
But if it becomes vice president of content who came out of some other industry, then I think we would be concerned. I do, however, think that we're a much younger industry, so we shouldn't just do apples for apples with other subscription models. I think because we're a younger industry, a lot of people who are in it, even in senior positions in big companies, they've got gaming instincts. And so then you as the game developer or the publisher, you have to look at your own business and analyze what it is your short, medium, and long-term objectives are. So, for example, Fall Guys PlayStation Plus, absolutely superb.
Mm-hmm.
That gave that game 30-odd million plus audience in like a month and a half.
Sure.
And if I've just disclosed something I shouldn't have, fuck.
Great, we've got a headline now. Fantastic.
That's the headline. That's the title. We got it. We got it.
That's the thumbnail. That's the title. That's the press release. There we go. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Be sure to credit us. Friends Per Second podcast. You heard it here first.
But so I think you have to, you as a game developer and us as a publisher, we have to look at these services and think from the perspective of the game itself, what's the value of subscription services? What's because the Game Pass and PlayStation, they can bring you an audience that you perhaps would never have got. But I think this is a conversation we'll be having, continually, and I don't go to bed worrying about it, as I say, but I feel that's because we've got very game-centric people running these services.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way about Spotify. I think that's pretty horrendous.
But right now, you guys aren't taking a bath on subscription deals. You don't feel like you're being put over a barrel, and you feel like right now it's actually working out pretty well, net positive.
Yeah, I would always say this is the people that we deal with at Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, and Nintendo are not part of the subscription conversation, but I think they're people really look forward to meeting and hanging out with. The way they talk about games is no different than how we talk about them. So that's
yeah, you're right. The other really big thing that's affecting you guys directly is that you guys went public a little while back, and you guys are worth like $1 billion now, if I'm not mistaken.
Not
anymore.
What?
Okay, right. What are you worth? Like 750 million now or something?
No, I think you have to get lower, much lower.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're still worth a lot of money. Okay, that's the thing, and obviously the public thing shifts the priorities of a company and the way a company works. Shareholders have different expectations, and they apply pressure in different ways. How resilient do you think Devolver will be to that sort of pressure? What's going to stop Devolver from going down the path that every other public listed publisher does?
There's a number of things. I mean, firstly, and obviously I'm getting to mark my own homework right now, so that's always dangerous. So the thing was for us is that the easy answer is to say that the founders and the people that work at Devolver still own the vast majority of the company. So we are actually the shareholders, the majority shareholders. We're very fortunate as well that we've got NetEase and Sony who own a chunk, and so I feel like we're quite insulated from that external pressure because the people that own the majority of our company are actually from the games industry, work for Devolver, work for Dodge Roll, Firefly, Crow Team, Good Shepherd. So I feel like that pressure, whilst it's there, is not maybe as profound as it might have been if we'd, by floating our company, sort of sold 60% or something to get to that point. But again, Harry, you know, it was a very carefully considered decision, and what Harry did, along with Doug, who's our CEO. I always get the C things mixed up. And Dan, who's the CFO. When they went out, did the roadshow where you present to potential investors, they really did spend a great deal of time explaining that the way that we work is why we're valuable. If we change that, then we lose that. And yeah, that's how they pitched it. That's how they, you know, went through that whole process. So I feel like there's pressure because, you know, you can't pretend there isn't. There's always going to be pressure to deliver some positive performance, but it's not based on, and it wasn't based on us saying, okay, in the next 10 years, we're going to be $1 billion company in terms of revenues, or we're going to have Series Sam 16 on VR. We never made those promises. We just said, this is what we're good at. We're very confident in the spaces we work in. We're very confident with the developers we've been working with, continuing to make super interesting content. And that was the pitch. So,
sure.
Yeah.
So no NFT projects to announce on this podcast then? This is the window to do it. I mean, you know, you can drop more exclusives here. We'd love to hear it.
All the investors are listening right now. Yes.
They're listening right now.
Yeah.
You say you're not $1 billion at the moment. You say it's dropped. This is your chance to bring it back up right now.
Yeah, they've got your stock either on the buy or the sell portion of their portfolio right now.
I mean, that free to play Hotline Miami.
Oh, there it is.
Is the dream. No, you know, we wish anyone well with their business models and good luck to them all. But we're very sort of happy in our space. So
sure.
We'll stay where we are.
Sure. Well, look, it's been fantastic talking to you. I know we're all fans of the output of Devolver and have been for a long time. And if it can keep on keeping on the way that it is, then I think everyone's going to be pretty happy because, you know, it's always a good
honestly,
time.
It is great to hear. Yeah, I feel like it's we have since the get-go, we've been very well kind of like, you know, taken care of by the games media. We've always felt like we've been given a fair crack of the whip at every turn. And I think it's maybe important to say that because I think you guys get kicked around quite mercilessly by the internet, which is quite egregious. But yeah, thanks to the games media in general, because you've really given us the oxygen.
Sure.
Yeah, well, it's always appreciated.
It's always just fun talking about Devolver stuff. Cult of the Lamb was great. We've got Monkey Island soon. That Stick It to the Stick, man, looks like a good time. That was just unveiled. It looks nice. So there's always
Gunbrella. I played Gunbrella at PAX. It was amazing. Angry Foot.
Angry Foot. Yeah.
Crushing it.
That was awesome. Yeah. So sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that it's you know, the booth at PAX was kind of like the way it was set up. And for those of you who weren't there, it was like a sort of cinema vibe, and you had Gunbrella and Angerfoot on two ends, and then on the back you had Stick It to the Stick Man. All really high energy kinetic games. Then you had Terra Nil, which was the chill out zone.
Yeah,
you could just go in like,
played that one. Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
That's a great game as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, look, we won't take up any more of your time. We can see the sun is setting there, and we want to let you get back to it. But look, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really do appreciate it, and we hope we can have you on again in the future. Good luck with everything. Hope it all goes well.
Yeah, well, I might not have a job after revealing the Sony numbers, but there you go.
Love it. All right, see you, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Okay, so that was Graeme Struthers from Devolver Digital. Thank you very much for joining us from your beachside location. Awesome chat. Really great to hear about that company. And as we were saying at the end, we all just love their stuff. And it was nice to hear how the sausage is made. And
You know what's so nice is that like hearing from a British game dev, he's just like saying the names of people that I know. I'm like, he's talking about Tom and he's talking about Mike. I was like, oh, I miss those guys. Like the UK industry is so small. Like everyone knows each other. So that was just like a nice little bit of home, even though he was in California.
Should we do a block on Liz Truss now? Should we do? Is that we're going to take the podcast in that direction, or we're going to skip? We're going to leave that one to the side for now. I think just to be safe. Who knows? Dude, we might have one or two Tories watching us who are like, actually, I'm really glad that Liz Truss got the nod. I think she's going to be great. Let's move on out of Cantor.
For me to go back to.
Let's move on. So we've got one thing we haven't talked about yet is major game releases for the week. There were quite a few. Actually, I've had to chop out a few from this list just to focus on the ones that, you know, we might have played or we might be able to talk about.
I believe you didn't consider JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Battle Type R or something.
Come on.
But you've pissed off a lot of fans with that comment, by the way.
No, I'm saying it as someone who hosts a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure podcast. I'm like,
wait, I did not know that. You actually do?
You host the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure podcast? I didn't know that.
When does this air? What is this?
How are you guys just finding this out?
No, what? It's on Giant Bomb. It's Jeff's Bizarre Adventure. So it's me, right. Tam, Jeff Backlar, and Super Eye Patch Wolf, who is like the biggest JoJo fan. And this is Jeff's first ever anime. I've never seen it before, but I've seen a bunch of anime, so I was like, I understand that sometimes it can get weird. And Jeff was just like, but anyway, yeah.
Because I've never watched that show and I listened to that show. Good. I thought it was just like Jeff, like it's just a funny name for a podcast, Jeff, but it's actually about Joe. Okay, right, cool. That's interesting. I like it.
We're in the middle of Stardust Crusaders right now, so.
Well, I've never watched any JoJo, so I don't know what that means.
You should. It is fucking amazing.
Wait, hang on. How many episodes are there? Is it like 1,000? It's like a One Piece deal where there's like 1,000 episodes, or what's the deal?
No. So in the first season, there is like 9 episodes. And then in the next one, there's 12-ish, I want to say. I'm probably getting that wrong. And then Stardust Crusaders is the really big season that we're in at the moment.
Wait, there's only 3 seasons of JoJo's?
No. There's a new season because Young's in it, is in the English dub of the new season. Someone did the maths.
You're speaking a language I don't understand. So
someone did the maths, and it was like, for us to catch up to the new season, it's going to take us like 2 years. So we've got a bunch. Like we're up to Jotaro, and then there's Jolene, and there's all the different JoJos. It's great.
Jolene, nice. I like that. That's cool. I like the song. Cool. All right. Well, now that we've done that, now that we know that, and we'll have to leave a link to that podcast below, I suppose.
Thank you.
Let's talk about some video games. One that came out this week that we know Jean was playing was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection. Jean, what's the dealio with this one?
13 games, Konami games, classic games released from the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy Advance, or just Game Boy games, and it's fantastic. It's such a good year for Ninja Turtles fans. I've been playing just Turtles in Time. I can now definitively say that it is better than the arcade version because I can play both together at the same time. You know, I played it in arcade and I played it in Super Nintendo, and I was like, I think the Super Nintendo version is better when I was like 13.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Gene has the correct take. That is correct.
It is correct. It feels better. The music is kind of hits harder. Like the
There's
Super
more
Nintendo
stages.
Chipset. There's more stages, of course. You know, like you can throw the foot soldiers, a shredder. Like that stuff didn't exist in the arcade. So yeah, it's just a fantastic game. I never played the Hyperstone Heist on the Genesis, so that's kind of fun. Not as good as Turtles in Time, but it's still fun. And I think a lot of people missed the Manhattan Project, which was like the last Konami Nintendo game ever released, and that was really good too. And even the Tournament Fighters for NES was also really good because it has kind of like
Tournament Fighters on NES, Super Nintendo, and Genesis are 3 different fucking games.
Mm-hmm.
All the same title, 3 different games.
Those are the wild times back in the 8 and 16-bit eras where you could get away with that sort of shit.
It's crazy. Yeah, you never see that. Imagine if we got like different versions of like Elden Ring, like in each console. You know?
Yeah.
Gene,
Oh,
I'm
that's
working.
cool.
I'm working with my producer Jake on an incredible TMNT video we can talk about after this. But I think it's made just for you. I think you're gonna really like it.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I've actually just booted up the Shredder's Revenge just this week. Funnily
It's
enough.
really fun.
So
It's
Yeah,
so fun.
yeah, because everyone was singing its praises, and I was just like sitting there on my Steam Deck, and I'm like, yeah, flicking through. I'm like, yeah, this is perfect. And I played through the first level, and I'm like, yeah, I see why people like this. It's nice. It's cool. It's fun. I feel like a lot of my memories about the Turtle games aren't specific memories. They're more like the vibe that I recall
feelings.
sitting on the floor with my brothers playing these games on the NES and the Mega Drive and whatever else. And they were nothing but the fondest memories. But you guys are like rattling off names of stuff. And I'm like, no, I can't remember that. I just remember playing Turtle games and loving them. That's the limit of my memory.
Look,
you know?
Yeah.
everyone hates on the Nintendo version of TMNT, and for good reason. But that intro song is still so good. I forget that that's not even the theme song of like the actual show. Like I still think of it as like a turtle song too. You know, it's amazing.
So worth your what is it like? It's like a discount sale. It's like $50 for the 13 games. Yeah, so you give it a ringing
I think it
endorsement.
was just $35. So yeah, it's
Okay,
it's
right, sure.
one of the greatest
Sure.
deals.
Well,
right
sorry,
now.
50 Australian dollars. So yeah, 35 US. Yeah,
It's a half of The Last of Us, and you get 13 games.
Yeah, but they didn't even update the graphics. The gameplay's still the same. It's disgusting. Fuck Konami. That's what I'm talking about,
There you
right?
go.
Unbelievable, lazy devs. Oh man. Video game discourse. Hey, let's talk something that we hear that everyone loves. Tinykin, because I know that that has been doing the rounds in the last little while. I hear nothing but glowing praise. And turns out you played it, Luz.
I finished it last
Whoa.
night. I loved Tinykin, and I want to give a special thanks to Jeff Grubb, who was the person who told me about it on the Bombcast last week. It is so the game, to be reductive, it is Pikmin, but and I think the thing that works in its favor is that like I was trying to think about like what really makes it special, and like I think the thing that I really love about it is like you are this shrunken little man called Milo Dane, and you are in a and you command the Tinykin, aka Pikmin, you're very tiny. You're in a house, so it's kind of like borrower's style. You know, using things to your main quest is you have to make a ship to escape the house, right? And I was like, that's all fairly standard. The thing that really sets the game apart for me is how good it feels to play, and just the game feel, as a wanky a term as that is phenomenal. Like, so I mean, even just by so you can get around just by walking, or if you press right trigger, you climb up immediately, and there's like little vibrations in the controller. You're like, boop, 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 boop. You go kind of go up.
You climb up your Pikmin.
Yeah,
you make a tower at your own
stack,
shop.
and you climb up
Wait.
immediately.
Just to interrupt, what are the Pikmin? Because obviously the Pikmin in Pikmin were like little sproutling things. What are they here?
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I had COVID, and I had kind of COVID brain, and I started to play Immortality, and I was like, ooh, I don't have the capacity for this, big man. Right now, facilities, big man. Sorry, that's a very good TikTok meme. But like, and so I started playing Tinykin. And the story is the one weak link, because the story is like way over the top for what it needs to be. There are all these tiny people, tiny creatures, the Tinykin, and you can control them for some reason. And there are also all these bugs in the house, and they all pray to a god named Ardwin. And then there was like some kind of like one level I booted up, and there was like this class divide with like like winged insects and the ground insects, and I was like, I didn't need this, okay? I don't know what's happening here. I just want to control my tiny men. So, to answer your question, not sure. The game feel is so good. So you can walk around, or you can climb your little Tinykins. The jumping just feels so reactive and so great. And if you hold down jump, you float. And so you get like a little bubble, and that's your sort of gauge, and you can collect more of the bubbles, and you can just like float among. So like in the first level, you're not really doing much. You're kind of mostly on the ground the whole time, and then gradually platforming up. But then by the time you get to like the third or fourth, when you've got a few more bubbles, you can just like I'm at the top of the room, and I'm gonna like drop my way down, and then glide, and then drop down, and it feels really good. And then the other part is that you have basically, if you press the right bumper, you get a bar of soap to glide on. And let me tell you, there is something so primal about how good it feels to just be jumping around, then switch to a float, and then switch to like grinding on this bar of soap, and then climbing up the guys, and then the way that you use, like, you have a little guy that the little red guys blow stuff up, so you just blow stuff up around you, and the way the puzzles all come together. The thing that I also really love about it is that, like, there is not too much hand-holding at all. You basically enter into a new room, so you could go into, like, the kitchen of the house, and the whole thing is, we want to build a cake. You need to get these ingredients and put them in the blender. Or the cake mixer, right? And then it's like, the way that you find it is you explore. There is no mini map. There is no on-screen, like, go over here to find the eggs, right? The camera will kind of show you as the first characters are explaining, and then you spend an hour just like walking around and completing puzzles and just exploring. And I had no idea really what to expect from this game other than it is like Pikmin. But I was totally engrossed by it. The music is great. The game feel is the thing that really got me. Like, it just felt so good to play. I was just switching my brain off and just having a great time. And honestly, it's on Game Pass, and I would recommend it to anyone. Like, it is great. I had such a good time.
So cool.
Doesn't outstay its welcome. I clocked in credits at 7 hours, but I noticed that the clock did run even if you're on the pause screen. So maybe it's closer to 5.5, 6, because like I would pause it and eat or something. But it's a fantastic little game.
It's so interesting because you could just make another Pikmin game and it'd be kind of shit. But it's like, well, we're not getting any other Pikmin games, so this is, you just take what you can get. But it sounds like they made a Pikmin game, but they're like, actually, we're going to make a really good Pikmin game, and we'll take it from here. Thanks very much, Nintendo.
It's really funny. There's one point where when you have the pink guys, they are the ones who can pick stuff up for you. And I think it's those guys, or I think it's like when you, when you set a bunch of them, because things in the environment will require a certain amount of them to pick up. So, you kind of spend, when you first enter a level, you kind of glide around and pick up a bunch of them and then go and do your little tasks. But the whistle noise from Pikmin, isn't it? Basically, like when you set a bunch of the pink guys to pick stuff up, it goes, and I'm like, how are you getting away with that? Get away with that. But I'm glad you did.
So nice.
It's great.
That's
great
nice.
game feel.
Also, I think Lucy just made our first T-shirt.
The game feel.
A shirt that says game feel.
Game feel.
We're going to get the Italians, they're pissed off at cultural appropriation, okay?
Look,
please. They're like, that's our gesture. Don't you take it from us.
The pinch emoji, which is not the Italian thing at all.
That's right.
Pinch.
Right, sure.
Pinch.
We'll work
that's
on
cool.
it.
Well, I had actually planned to check this one out because, as I said, every time I'd heard anything about it, it was just nothing but glowing praise. And you've obviously sold it. So I'm definitely it's obviously going to be on Steam. I'm going to grab it now. I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it on Steam Deck. You played it on your Steam Deck, didn't you, Luce? The Steam Deck that you have. You played
Lucy,
it on that, didn't you?
Lucy,
of course.
share your experience about your Steam Deck.
Can you show us your Steam Deck right now?
Yeah, why don't you show it? Show it
Where
class.
is it? Zing!
For audio listeners,
Jake, blur that out, please, Jake. We don't tolerate that filth on this podcast.
We have to get these jokes out now because one day it will change. And you will
that's right. And for audio listeners, I can assure you that she did make a rude gesture with her hand when she did that. Then, so just for anyone listening to the podcast,
the thing is that my window is October, and October feels like so long away. It's not, boys. It's in like 3 weeks.
It's crazy.
It's really close to October.
It's truly crazy. Yep.
One day I will be like you.
Immortality was another game that released this week. No one here has touched that one yet, except for Lucy, who had it with her COVID brain and noped out of it pretty fast.
I was enjoying it. The performances were great, but I was like, I don't have the wherewithal to put any kind of puzzle together right now.
It is reviewing spectacularly well, though. 91 on Metacritic, if I remember correctly. And everyone really loves it. So I'm really keen on that because I actually really love that guy's game, Sam Barlow. With The Last of Us obviously hit, we've already talked about that one to death. We're not going to be talking about that anymore. Temtem hit on the 6th. No one's played that other than myself, but I played it during the early access period at launch. I really liked it. It came at a time when everyone was really pissed off with how stagnant Pokemon felt, because this was before like Legends of Arceus or whatever. Sword and Shield had just dropped and had got like ridiculously high reviews, even though it sucked. I'm sorry, it's not these days. I don't buck much against review scores, but no, Pokemon Sword and Shield sucked, and I was like, what? Because I reviewed it and I was like, this sucks, man. So do you have a soft spot? Am I wrong here? Did you guys love Sword and Shield?
I mean, it's British,
You can
so
say it's
I liked it a lot. I thought
like
You
it.
did?
But
yeah.
What?
dude, I haven't.
But it's like the same. It's been the same
It's
forever.
it's different
I say
enough,
as a
though.
Destiny fan, LeMayo.
I haven't finished a Pokemon game since like Pokemon Red, so
Sure.
this one,
Yeah,
and I
right,
didn't
right.
finish Sword and Shield, so you know.
Right, sure. But Temtem came along at that time, seamless co-op multiplayer, updated visuals, like all sorts of new systems. It was kind of like, hey, this is what Pokemon could be like if Game Freak were to do something with it. And I really enjoyed it. Separate from the dunking on Pokemon thing, it was just in itself a really like good game that I enjoyed. That was 2 years ago. Since then, it's got a bunch of updates and it's out now in 1.0, so you can check that out if you like your monster hunting, monster training things. Gloomwood hit PC on the 6th. That's from New Blood Interactive, the guys behind all those sort of like retro-y sort of games like Ultra Kill and Dusk and that sort of stuff. And
Dusk
it's an
is
immersive
so good.
sim. Yeah, it's an immersive sim and I haven't played it yet. Well, I did play the demo, but I haven't played the full release yet. But it's apparently really good. Disney's Dreamlight Valley. Is anyone planning on picking this up? It's Animal Crossing with Disney characters. Does this ring anyone's bell?
Definitely not for me.
Oh, I thought you were
Not
gonna be
the
like,
demo.
I'm in.
I was
Not
going to say. Okay. Wait, there was a demo, wasn't there? Oh, you're not the demo, right? Okay, no,
I'm
'cause
not
I
the
think-
demographic.
Right, I thought you were talking about the demo. I'm trying to think, was there a demo for that? I remember hearing something, or maybe there's out now. I don't know.
Look.
Maybe I'm
early
imagining
access
that.
beta.
Yeah, right. Steelrising. This was one. You guys, okay, Spiders, the team that made Greedfall. Did you know
Oh.
they just released another game today, pretty much?
So I only knew
Yeah.
because I saw the review come through our QA. I don't
Yeah.
know what we gave it, actually.
I don't remember.
In my
But,
mind,
um,
Greedfall never
Spot.com?
came out. Was that a good game?
Look, Greedfall had a lot of fans for a lot of reasons. It's very much in that BioWare mold at a time when, similar to Temtem, and was like, oh, this is what we really need right now. I think that Greedfall arrived when BioWare was putting out Anthem, and like everyone was like, we really need a BioWare game, please. And it was that, but it was really only good, I think, for about the first 10 hours. And then they copy and pasted a lot of stuff after that. And, it just, the writing was not good. There was a whole bunch of stuff, but a lot of people really liked it. It was a solid game that I think deserves a future. They have announced a sequel for it. But Steelrising was their next project, and it's a Souls-like with the whole kind of like automaton thing going on. You play like a puppet thing, whatever. It looks kind of cool, but reviews are a bit middling for it. It's kind of sitting at that 7 out of 10.
Yeah, we
category
gave it a
across the board.
7.
Yep. And the only other release this week was Splatoon 3, which I haven't got my hands on yet. No one has their hands on it yet, but Gene is fiending it. This is going to be his. Okay, let me just say this, Gene. I've actually never, not say, but ask, I've never really understood the appeal of Splatoon because I've played little bits of it and I'm like, okay, this is kind of fun. I guess I'm spraying the thing. It's never stuck with me. What is the thing that makes you love Splatoon? Like, could you sell it to me? Because I don't quite get
I
it.
think it kind of feels good to shoot another person with paint and like they just kind of go pop. The game feel again. It's kind of there. I love the art style. I love the music. I think for me a lot of it is the style. Like I just love like the Splatoon kids. I love the fact that like they have like DJs as like influencers, like announcing things in between, like just that whole vibe of like the city. Like you just never really see games like that anymore. It feels like a lost Dreamcast game, that like made by Nintendo. So that's kind of why I like it. And I was obsessed with Splatoon 2 for like months. I just like it was like the only game I played for like a while, and I was like, I need to grind to like get these clothes. So I can get the cool shoes for my little Splatoon guy, and I want to unlock the gun that shoots paint better.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, the single player campaign was never anything. I'm kind of interested to see how they change it up for the third one. But really, I'm not even much of a multiplayer shooter guy, but I was really hooked on Splatoon for a while.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that, Gene, because I'm not the biggest fan of the multiplayer. I'm the weirdo that loved the single player, and I don't know why. It's just it's great. The charm, the style, the collectibles.
Yeah.
Also, yes, internet, I know in Splatoon 2, when you get your first collectible, it says, "Who do you think you are, the completionist?" I'm very aware. I got thousands and thousands of texts and tweets about it. So,
oh my God.
Shout outs to my boys at the Treehouse throwing a reference my way. I appreciate you guys.
That's amazing.
I remember you mentioning that before. Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah.
God, Splatoon, like, you know when you get like opportunities come through to do stuff with like devs? Splatoon is my white fucking whale. Because no. So years ago, Nintendo in the UK, I can't remember if this was Splatoon 1 or 2. They reached out and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna have a dev. He's coming over from Japan." Which for Nintendo is pretty rare anyway. Like they don't offer talent that much. Mm-hmm. And they were like, "Okay, he can come around. Is there anything in particular you'd want to do with him for Splatoon?" And Tamor and I pitched that we would play a game of Splatoon against the dev. The loser would get gunged, or like, is that what you call it in America? Slimed.
We can imagine.
Yeah.
This gesture and the stakes indicate you're talking about
slimed. Yeah.
And so like we were talking to Nintendo and they were like, "Okay, well, first of all, we're gonna have to figure out what the Japanese translation for slime is gonna be." We managed to get this signed off because we were like, okay, whatever, we'll make sure he wins and he gets to slime us. It was going to be an amazing fucking video. We got it signed off. Nintendo were on board. And then our facilities manager just went, "Absolutely not. We're not putting slime in the office." And we were like, "We'll go on the roof. We'll go in the back garden." And she was like, "No." So that is like the white whale video idea that we never got to make.
Facilities manager.
Facilities manager, boo.
Sharon.
You did a very good Karen voice too. You're like, "No."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my goodness."
There should be a game.
My fight or flight response just like just hit right there. I was just like,
there should be some like GameSpot sitcom when like the evil facilities lady, she's always the bane on your side. I like that. That's a good premise.
And she's actually not called Karen. She's called Sharon. She is very nice, but I can see why
not in that instance.
Might have made a mess.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Outside of that, those were all the big releases. The only other things that people have been playing include I've been playing too much Destiny, sadly. There's a new season out. It's
okay. You don't have to apologize for this. You know,
we support you.
You're the Destiny guy.
Support your need.
I'm the Destiny guy
for good game feel, my dude.
A good game. Destiny's game feel is that good.
Destiny's game feel is good from day one.
And then it's all the other stuff that everyone's like.
Bungie knows that game feel.
It is. It is very good. And I know, Gene, you have been playing Xenoblade. You're on a bend right now, just playing like all of them all the time, and they are not small games.
No, I've played 300 hours of Xenoblade Chronicles for the last month or so.
That's so crazy.
Played part 3, absolutely loved it, and I was like,
"You're a better man than I am.
I should go back to part 2." And you know what? Like Jirard, you'd be proud of me. Like I'm level 99 on all 3 games for every single party member.
He's coming for your
you
crown.
Honor me, sir. You honor me.
That is a lot.
You've done what I have not done yet, and everyone claims I should do it. You honor me. Thank you.
They're huge games, but I love them. They're so British. So like, you know, they're
all right, I'm in.
You know. They're extremely British.
What a bunch of jokers.
The beautiful thing about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is that different countries in that game will have different British accents depending on like different districts. So like one will be Welsh, one will be like South London. It's amazing. And so you can tell like what kind of character they would be based on their accent. And that continues in 3, which is incredible. Cool. Like there's they put so much thought into the localization. It's definitely like a Cowboy Bebop situation where like I think the localization is actually kind of better than the original Japanese translation. Really well done game.
That's awesome.
I'm obsessed with all 3 of them.
Yeah, I'm all 4. Don't forget X. I mean, I know it's not it's not quite Chronicles, but
It's the only Wii U game stuck on the Wii U now.
I know, right? It's so annoying. Like I'm
sure it's coming soon. I'm sure that's
Is
the
it
next
though? One. I can't be sure of anything with Nintendo. It's like there's such a mercurial fucking pain in the ass.
There's only a handful of games stuck on the Wii U at this point. It's like maybe at least first party wise. It's like Yoshi's Woolly World, Star Fox Zero, which probably will never show, and Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Probably more maybe 3 sells well enough that they'll be like, oh, you know what? Why don't we just toss out X now? You know,
they do that, and they have every Xenoblade game available on Switch, and everyone's happy.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you, Steam Deck. God bless you, saving the day. So that is very cool. I think that's all the things that we've been playing this week. Then, if I'm not mistaken, or this fortnight, I should say.
You've got something on there, but I don't know if you're allowed.
Oh, actually, no, I can't. That shouldn't be on there yet. So we will come back to that.
Oh,
so
cool.
There was something that I actually have been playing a few things under NDA right now. That is one of them. I meant to mark that as NDA. So apologies for that. But there's actually a lot. That was. Yeah, that's right. That is a teaser. There's actually a lot. Actually, Jirard, that's right. You were at PAX. We forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Tell us, how did it go? Which PAX is it? I feel like there's like 7 PAXs. PAX West.
There's South. No, South is gone. So there's now PAX East in Boston, PAX West in Seattle, PAX Australia, and PAX Unplugged.
Well, isn't the UK has EGX, which is now owned by PAX.
Reed Pop is the Reed Pop company purchased it. Yeah, so it's their org now.
Right.
Okay. First off, I want to give a huge shout outs to the hundreds, if not thousands, of you that came up to me at PAX West and said that you love FPS. We love you. It was really filled my heart that so many of you guys came up and said the podcast is great. We love you guys. It felt good that we got so much. I got all the love for the podcast for us. So thank you so much. Second, I went with no appointments, so I just walked around. I explored PAX and just walked up to indie dev booths and sat in line and freaked out some indie devs because they were like, "Why are you here?" And I got to play some fun games. I got to play a game called Sea Frog. Don't know if you guys heard of that. It's imagine 2D Tony Hawk Pro Skater, but you play as a frog. And the aesthetic is very much like Mega Man Legends in that you're on boats and you travel between ships and fix each other boats while doing tricks. It was a very,
what the fuck?
It was a very crazy, very crazy game. Very hard to play, but man, I felt like I took an edible when I was playing it because it was a trip, and I feel like I didn't learn enough about the game, but it was super, super sick. What else did I play? I played 30XX. If you guys remember 20XX, the indie game.
Oh, sure.
30XX is a sequel, and it is a
I didn't even know
banger. It's
cool.
so good. Shout outs to Chris, the lead dev over there. That game is amazing. It's just shaping up better and better. It's exactly what I wanted from a sequel. More characters, better pixel art, kick-ass music, and of course, roguelite galore. And then of course, last week, for those of you who don't know, I got to act in a commercial that I directed and wrote and shot for Yacht Club Games for Shovel Knight Dig. And I got to play Dig for the first time at the convention show floor, as well as Mina the Hollower, which I also got to debut at G4, but never got to play. So I got to spend a lot of time at those booths actually playing those games, and those Yacht Club people are wonderful. You're going to love it. I also checked out Rift of the Necrodancer, which is the new rhythm game by Brace Yourself Games in the Necrodancer timeline. It is very, very fun. I'd akin it to it's one part on the zone of rhythm, like DJ Hero or those anime rhythm games where it's simple beat patterns of left, up, down, right kind of vibe, like DDR, but a little more easier. And then it's also like WarioWare or Rhythm Heaven, where there's mini games where it's your Cadence does yoga poses and you have to time them to the beat of the music in the yoga room with everyone. And then the boss fights are Punch-Out characters. So you're playing Punch-Out, but it's rhythm games. You're hearing music and you have to dodge to the beat and engage.
That's cool.
It's if you like Crypt of the Necrodancer, this is a great, great way to keep that that whole genre fresh. But yeah, I think very, very, very good stuff coming out of PAX. I played a lot more, but those are the key highlights that I specifically loved.
Nice.
Man.
Awesome. Perfect.
I've never been to a
Hey,
PAX.
let's just do... Sorry, Luce?
I've never been to a PAX.
Oh, they're
you
so
gotta
nice.
come.
They have such a
You
good
gotta
vibe.
come.
I've been to PAX East.
Yeah.
wanna
Great
go.
community vibe to them. They're really good
It's
in
pretty
that way,
chill.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, let's do 2 quick listener questions before we wrap up the show. Just going to choose these at random. If you have any questions, hit them at contact@friendspersecond.com. Also on Twitter, you can hit us up there. We do have a Twitter. We are on the Twitter. So do hit us there for questions. Let's do this one. WD40 asks, if the host, I know, right? If the host, it's spelled W, like the letters WD and then the word 40.
Okay.
If the guests only had one controller to use forever, which controller would it be?
Either the Elite Series 2 or the Switch Pro.
I would agree with you, except with the Series 2, except it would break within the first month and you'd be stuck with a broken
Mine
controller
hasn't
forever.
broken. I've had mine
Wow,
for like 2
that's the
years and
only
mine's
one.
great.
It would be my
That's
pick
the
if like 2 of mine didn't break already. So
Yeah, same. 2 of mine are broken.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think
Sure.
I think Switch Pro. Switch Pro is the way.
Switch
to
Pro
go.
is so comfortable. I love
Oh,
it.
okay.
Super, super comfy.
Yeah, I think I would probably say the PS5 controller actually.
Okay.
But it would also break. My PS5
How's that
controller broke
battery
within
life
the
doing?
first month.
Exactly.
Battery life plus the adaptive triggers are going to break. But I love it because it's big and I have bigger hands. And so it's like when I pick it up, I'm like, yes, this is the right size controller. I love the feel of it. Plus I love all its bells and whistles when they actually work. So yeah, I mean, I would say PS5. But yeah, the Elite Series controller is also fantastic. Yeah. The Elite Series controller has such a premium feel to it. It weighs so much. It's like such a chunky boy, and it's like you pick it up and it's like cast iron metal almost.
Yeah.
You're like, I've got it, and you're like, you paid.
It's almost a
proper
little
money
too
for that
heavy.
and-
Yeah. But
well, yeah.
Can you take the weights out of it? I haven't.
Not this one. No, there are other controllers I've seen where you can adjust the weights, but not this one. No. All right. Other question comes from Jake W. He asks, if you weren't in gaming, where would you be? What would you be doing?
I guess I haven't been really in gaming unless for the last 2 years. So I'd probably be.
What were you doing before? What were you doing before this?
Oh, I was a social media editor at the Washington Post.
Right.
So
okay,
I ran the
cool,
Washington
cool.
Post Twitter account. I did a Reddit strategy. I did live streaming. I got us on Twitch. So yeah, that was my job. So I would just probably just go back to doing that, I guess.
Imagine
covering
Oh,
local
shit.
crime, which I used to do. So I just be a regular old
Right.
journalist, I guess.
I can't imagine what it would be like to do the Washington Post Twitter handle. Like the things you would read, the things that would come back at you every time you post anything.
I just was just flamed, like we would just be flamed like every goddamn minute of every day. It's just
Sure.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, right. Interesting. How about you, Jirard? What would you be doing, man?
Probably would be acting still, trying to find,
Nice.
just be the starving actor that I was meant to be, trying to get that next gig, that next TV show, that next stand-up comedy routine. Because that's where I was going before I did this. And in fact, my YouTube career was supposed to be my stepping stone to do that. And then I got stuck in a loop where I started completing things and never left. So I'm kind of there now, but it took 11 years. But, that's where I'd be.
Yeah, right. And Lucy, other than Lord of the Rings consultant, where might you be in life?
So before I got into games, the thing about my family either works in law or they're working in teaching. There is no in between. I am the only in between in my entire family. So I would be in one of those two. And so for a long time, I worked at law offices. I was working in reception. I would do admin. I was a typist for a while. So that, or teaching, or if we're going for the aspirational, and I was thinking about this, I would love to be a pimple popper.
Whoa, that's
Is That
whoa,
game feel?
okay.
That's a job?
No, yeah,
It's the
well, I
game
mean,
feel
like a
thing.
dermatologist.
It's
Game
the feel.
A dermatologist, but like
That game
you know,
feel, though.
I would love to.
No, stick with the pimple popper thing firstly. Okay, where would you imagine, what kind of business model is this?
I
Is
would
it
be a
go to someone's
dermato- it
house?
would be a
Is it
dermatologist.
you go to someone's house and do
A
this, or would you have a shop like pimple popping? Like,
Yeah,
is
well,
it, what is this?
No, I'd be a dermatologist. No, I don't. I genuinely like. I just think it would be like, you know, a fun, relaxing thing to do.
Is there
I'm
a pimple popping
disgusting.
video game? Hang on, is there a pimple popping video game firstly? Because I feel like Power Wash Simulator is that kind
Scratches
of thing
that
where it like if you made a pimple popping game, I reckon it would sell.
Ralph,
like,
we got to
properly
call
sell.
Graham back up. Get Graham back. It
We do.
sounds like
I'm-
Devolver
I'm
money
on
all
Steam
over it.
right now. What have we got?
That's right,
Pimple
100%.
popping.
Pimple pop game. Is there one?
No results.
Oh
Match
shit!
your
Okay,
search.
don't steal our idea. If you steal it, we're gonna sue you. Okay?
Pimple pop.
It's,
nothing. So
It's here.
It's
this
ours.
Is this frames per second podcast coming at you with the latest and greatest in crazy fucked up game ideas. For me, I think sadly I would probably just be some corporate drone working in a consulting job doing incredibly boring PowerPoint work. That was what I was doing before. Why not just keep doing that for 30 years and then retire? That'd be sick. Anyway, that's that. Thankfully, we're not doing that. Hey, you know what we're doing instead? Playing video games, and we've been doing it for a while. Jirard, why don't you tell us what we were playing like when we were young, 70 years ago? We got back in those days.
So I went through. Again, feedback always is appreciated. I'm trying to make the list smaller, but this week it's pretty crazy stuff. Here we go. 2 years ago, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. That came out. Remember the pandemic?
How many years?
2 years ago.
That was the remaster.
The remaster.
I was like, well,
yeah.
okay, right,
so that's
sure.
a more recent one. Also, 3 years ago, River City Girls came out. Great beat 'em up. September 6th, 11 years ago. This one's going to make you feel old. Dead Island, baby. Dead Island.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, man. 5 years ago, Ralph, this is for you. Destiny 2.
Oh God, what a journey!
Yeah.
What an absolute!
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so crazy.
Not to mention, Destiny 1 came out in the same time frame just a few years before.
Yep.
So it's a double
That's it.
Destiny anniversary.
Wow.
Let's see.
Trash game, dead game.
Yeah.
Dead game.
September 7th, 10 years ago, Mark of the Ninja. Huge indie game for those of you who missed it.
Yeah. Great stuff,
12
man.
years ago, September 7th, 2010, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions.
Oh shit!
One of the
was
weirder
good.
Spider-Man games, and I bring it up because 4 years ago on the exact same day, Spider-Man for PS4 came out. So they really made sure to come around full circle
right.
with that one. 23 years ago, September 8th, 1999, Ready to Rumble Boxing for the Dreamcast came out. That was a great time.
That was a great game. Afro
Yeah.
Thunder was my boy.
Yeah.
Totally, man. It's time to dance.
12 years ago, September 8th, today, or within the week, Amnesia: The Dark Descent came out. That's a big one.
Wow.
And Plants vs. Zombies on the Xbox 360 came out. A very popular
right,
title.
okay.
What a great game.
Yeah. Huge anniversary here. 28 years ago, everyone. September 9th, 1994. Hold on to your butts. Mortal Kombat 2.
Whoa.
That one's a
shit.
rough one to hear.
Wow,
And
yeah,
rounding
right.
things out, September 10th, 2009. This one's for Gene specifically. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time reshelled. Well, maybe one of the worst ports of Turtles in Time.
I never played that one.
Produced by
I
Ubisoft.
definitely didn't want to.
Yeah, sorry to the dev that made that game, but it was not a good time. But that's your abbreviated game weekend Fortnite gaming.
Weekend Fortnite.
Weekend
This
Fortnite gaming.
Love it.
There you go.
Well,
Stuck the
thank
landing.
you very much for that. And I want to say a really big thank you to Gene for stopping by this week, for
having me.
coming in clutch and saving the day, replacing Jake while he's off gallivanting about the barren wastes of Iceland.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
got
I'll
you
be headed there
here.
next week, so you know.
That's right. From the free tickets we're getting from the Icelandic government. But dude, it was awesome to have you here. Finally, the chance to chat to you face to face after so many
I
years.
love all you guys. You know, I've actually met Lucy before. She was so kind enough to bring me onto her show. So, you know, to Jirard, Ralph, you know, been such long time fans of both of you. So, been an honor to be on this podcast. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And we will definitely hit you up and have you back in the future when The Last of Us 3 comes around. You know, let's just dive deep into that. When that gets announced, we'll have you back.
I'll be like, I played it 20 times.
That's right. It's been out for 6 days. I've already finished it 20 times. So I'm like, okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you very much. And Jirard, Lucy, thank you as always. A pleasure. And you guys got anything big cooking at the moment you want to shout out right now?
Well, if you are watching this or listening to it on Saturday, please go to GameSpot and watch the Swipe mobile showcase. So,
that's right.
Yeah, we're putting on a showcase, which is very exciting. I can talk about it now, I guess, like a bunch of things from Call of Duty, The Division, PUBG, stuff from Apple, stuff from Netflix. It's a really cool show, and it was like really fun to put together. Tam and I got to write a showcase, which is
sick.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Take that, Jeff Keighley.
I know. We do make a couple jokes about like
Batman
being
is
up
dead.
against Batman is dead. No, being up against Jeff, but like it was really fun, and like I got COVID, so I couldn't be in it. But I want to give a huge shout out to Kurt and Davina from the team at GameSpot. Like he day of stepped up and he did so well, and like he and Tam hosted it along with Greg Miller, and it came together really well, and I'm really happy with
cool.
how it all happened. So please go and watch that over on GameSpot.
Love it. Exciting times. Gerard, how about you, man? Anything exciting coming up?
No, just gonna keep promoting it. God of Work Season 1 is out now.
Yes.
It's doing super well. We appreciate all the positive feedback and love. Let's make Season 2 happen. Just keep watching the show. Tell your friends. We love to make it, and we hope you guys enjoy it.
It's great.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, man.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to sub to the Shill Up channel. But more importantly, go and hit up the RSS feed on your podcast platform of choice so you can listen to this on the go without having to pay for YouTube Premium. That's handy. That's nice. But thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time with Jake Baldino back. Looking forward to it. See you
And
later.
remember, tie your shoes and go to bed.
Oh, shit! That's what happens when Jake's not
Oh my
here. We
God.
forget, but thank
Tie
God
your
Gerard
shoes.
saved the day.
Tie your shoes, go to bed.